following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2018 Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. We're live on the set at Sydney Motorsport Park and of course sponsored by Motum Simulations and the guys at CAMS, and we are in for a fantastic event here today. We have 18 drivers looking to compete for the top prize of a test in a Formula 4 car. That is one prize all these drivers are going to be eyeing off, but to do it first they have to survive the elimination heat, which are going to be drivers of 3 in each race, 7 laps, and it's only the top 2 that are going to be going through at the end of the day. Alongside me is Mr. Zachary Hanlon. And Zach, we've got a very stacked field initially, but first they have to master the car.
That's absolutely right. And we're going back to a bit of a historic track in the Australian motorsport history, of course, Oran Park, which is sadly no longer with us. But we are reviving it for the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown here today at Sydney Motorsport Park. And as you said, we have some absolutely fantastic drivers here today, including some of Australia's best sim racers and some up-and-coming racing drivers from the real world as well, and some very established ones at that as well. So we've got 3 of the Motum Simulation MS6 simulators here, and we are absolutely fired up and ready to go. All 3 drivers are currently sitting in the sim, ready to get going for race number 1. So we'll get some graphics up for you very shortly, and yeah, the format today is going to be very exciting.
It is. There's a lot of pressure on all these drivers. They have to get everything right at the very start from this race because there's only 7 laps, and Oran Park is not the longest circuit, so you have to make every bit of the track count, get every apex braking zone nailed. Make sure if you're going to go for a pass, which they might have to, there's only going to be a few opportunities as well. So set those passes up nicely and make sure you make them stick. But we're hearing some engines fire up now as we get ready for the first race here of the 2018 Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, and we're away, and they're firing away now into turn number 1, and we'll see how they go as we're trying to get pictures live at the moment. Just having a few issues, but you can hear there the drivers braking for turn number 1, very tough to do, and at the moment it is the driver of Josh Anderson who is still going. And as you can see, they're still trying to make their way under the bridge now into turn number 3. Of course, a very tricky corner, hard on the Yankees. You can hear one of the cars locking up just a little bit as he fights for oversteer as well. Not easy to do, but at the moment, there are 3 colours of cars. You've got the red Porsche, you've got the blue, and the white as well. The red Porsche out to a storming lead, but the blue Porsche is going with him at the moment and trying to make life just a little bit difficult. So it's not too easy at the moment for the driver in the red car. As you can see there now, just having a look from my perspective of the blue car, and he's really working the wheel, trying to get underneath the rear wing there, and the blue car is piloted by Josh Anderson, drives in the Aussie racing cars at Sydney Motorsport Park here this weekend, but at the same time, he is trying to win this competition and get himself into a Formula car, and he is right underneath the rear wing of the red car, over to the other final corner. He is flying down this far straight, and you can see we're now on board with the driver of Josh Anderson, but he has to find a way past. So turn 1 is one of the best opportunities, he's just not close.
Well, turn turn one is the place where you can make it or break it, and we can see running a little bit wide into turn number one there as they come through that little kink. Very difficult under brakes in these Porsche Cup cars. The rear just wanting to skid around all over the place as they come through the braking zone. But Josh Anderson is looking very strong in this first little lap of the race. They come into turn number 4 now. Josh just keeping a really nice tight line, and he might even go for the bridge. It's going together. So now, let's see if we can get some vision there. So Anderson now through. Big damage to that car. Can he manage to keep it on the track? Is he going to have a meatball? Does he have to pit? We'll have to find out in the moment. Josh very eager under the bridge there, and just yeah, very difficult move to get done on the inside there.
Go for that move, because let's not forget, it's the top 2 that go through at the end of this race. He was in second, there was no need to fight it. Third place is a little while away, so he didn't have to fight that, but he has. He's now got damage to his car. We're now looking at the red car there, and you can see that it looks like he's gone away relatively unscathed. If that incident never had to happen, so a lot of drivers, we said the pressure would be on, and the pressure's on into turn number 1 as the second car there, car number 2, all in the red livery, which is a beautifully turned out car. Unfortunately, not looking quite as beautiful as it goes for a trip through the gravel, but will be able to continue on its way, because third place has not had the best start to this race, so a little bit lacking behind. But if the driver is a little bit lacking and not able to fight for the top 2, Zach, there is another way to continue on in this race.
Yeah, so if you unfortunately don't finish in the top 2 of one of these heats this afternoon, we will take the fastest driver, the fastest lap of the non-finishing or the last place drivers, and whoever has the fastest lap out of all those drivers will win a wild card into the finals series of this event. So even if you don't make it in the first race that for the day, then you can still come back if you can put in a good lap for the rest of the day. But Josh Anderson still out in the lead. That car looking a little worse for wear, and we can see even just looking at him live here on set, he is looking to struggle a little bit with that car as he has to make up the steering down that he has that bit. So he does have a fairly good lead, and we've only got a few laps left. He should retain that, but maybe that's something he'll think about before he goes into the next heat up.
Well, it's not a little bit of steering damage, it's quite a lot of steering damage, and we're looking at it down the front straight just a little bit earlier, of course, heading under the bridge now, or over the bridge I should say, and struggling to keep it on the track at the moment. Porsche just not having the lateral grip, the mechanical grip that it once had before that contact was made, and now he's really having to fight it. It's not easy days. He was the top seeded driver. He had the quickest lap time weighing in at a terrifying 1 minute and 5 seconds, and that is a blizzard lap around this, unfortunately now no longer, or but he's one of the former drivers. All of a sudden, in the first heat, there is drama already for him. So, just no one that's some elimination style of process, Zach. No one's safe.
Yeah, no one is safe. And I mean, we've saw in the shakedown run of this event late last year for very similar things. Even myself, I was seated fairly well, but one minor mistake trying to set up a move on a car, and it was all game over for me, even though I was, before that doing extremely well. But looks like these two-front cars are going to be fairly safe for the time being. The third place car has got back and even if he does have quite a bit of damage to that car, Josh is still putting in some fairly respectable lap times from what we have seen so far. And I do have to say, though, the Motum Simulator liveries that have been put on the cars for today do look spectacular. Very much a fan of that white livery, but the red and the blue ones look fantastic. Well, hopefully for the next few races we can see them a little bit closer together, but and we will get some photos up for you soon, guys. Obviously, we are streaming live from here at Sydney Motorsport Park at a live event. We have been encountering a couple of minor little details, and in fact, just as I'm saying that, there we go. We've got some graphics for you now. So as we can see, Josh W. Anderson in the lead, Carl Draper in second, 8.4 seconds behind, and Glenn Kennedy sitting in third position. He's about 30 seconds off the pace at the moment, and looks like we might have even had to pull off the side of the road there. So just one lap to go after this one's completed for Josh Anderson. He has his spot in the next round tied up, and hopefully he'll be able to keep that car in a little better condition for the next round.
Well, that's what he's going to have to do. You've got to keep your nose clean. You've got to stay out of trouble to survive these early elimination heats. And unfortunately, he hasn't quite done that, but he might just be able to get away with it. And you can see, getting into the blind elevation change of the penultimate corner, right over the grass, on the inside as well. The steering is not straight, so he's really fighting that car. And that is allowing the second place driver, Carl Rapper, who was a little bit slower in qualifying. It's allowing him to basically match lap times. Last time around, they were within 1/10 of a second, so the times are close, just the outright pace just isn't there no longer for Josh Anderson, but it's not hurting him too much. We head into the final corner now with just 1 lap to go, actually 0.7 of a lap to go. The laps go extremely quickly here at Oran Park Circuit, and Josh Anderson out to a commanding lead over Carl Rapper, but Glenn Kennedy, unfortunately, hasn't been his day, and he is out of the car already. So Carl and Josh will be the two drivers that will go through at the end of this event, and they will indeed survive the very first heat here of the 2018 Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. But it all could have been over very, very quickly. It came together over the bridge on the second lap, I believe it was, really scrapping it out over the race lead. You can see the final few corners now, the elevating the nature of the circuit, which is now unfortunately a real estate, and that is something very, very unfortunate because it is one of the best circuits in Australia. But I don't think Josh Anderson has ever been able to take a race victory at Oran Park before. As he rounds the final corners, Zach is about to do just that.
Absolutely, and Josh W. Anderson takes out the first heat of today at Virtual Sim Racing Showdown live from Sydney Motorsport Park. Well done to him. Second place is going to go to Carl Rapper, who is fantastic in that red livery Motum machine. And yeah, a little bit of a scrappy race there, and possibly Josh Anderson, you know, maybe he knew that he was going to be able to pull away in this first heat and there was less to lose. Maybe he was just trying to pull a bit of a move, a risky move early in the game, so that maybe at some point later on in the weekend, he knows what he can and can't commit to. But we will see if we can possibly get Josh down here for a couple of words at the moment, although he does have Aussie racing cars as well this weekend. I'm not sure if he has to go off to his other commitments there. But yeah, a good start to this event, and we'll have Heat 2 coming up very, very shortly.
Well, the timesheets here at Sydney Motorsport Park have been moved, and Glenn Kennedy will be eliminated from the event. So we started with 18, we're already down to 17. This event is brutal. You've got to be in the top 2. Unfortunately, your day might just come to an end if you can't get the fastest lap that you need. But we are just wrapping up heat number 1, which, like you said, Josh Anderson managed to command that pretty nicely. Carl Rapper did exactly what he had to do. Got a fantastic start, managed to get into the lead. Wasn't quite able to hold it as the two came together, but nonetheless, we're going to be seeing these kinds of heats all throughout the day, and we do have a lot of close seeds to come up. But of course, as the event goes on, we're going to get a few more drivers eliminated, and the top guys, if they do manage to rise to the top of the heats, will be put into the same events as one another. So the heats are just going to get closer and closer and closer throughout the day. And tomorrow, the pressure is going to be well and truly on, because that is where this drive for the Cam's Australian Formula 4 car will be decided.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what a prize. I mean, how many places can you go to a real racing track? We've got race cars in the background, a bit of a nice soundtrack, and we've got the simulators all going in here. And at the end of the day, or at the end of tomorrow, one of these guys will be walking away with a test drive in a real F4 car, which is absolutely unbelievable to think about for some of these sim races. We've got many sim races here, as well as some real life racing drivers who you know, wouldn't mind probably moving from their current series into an F4 car themselves. So you know, that's going to be interesting to see who really wants to take the fight all the way, and who's going to come through. But we have what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is we're just going to have a small break, just get a few little you know, discrepancies sorted out, and just allow our next set of drivers to get into their cars and get comfortable before we start the next round. So we will be back with you in just a few.
we're sitting here, and right behind you is the iconic 24 car, which everybody knows the history of that car prior to you getting in it, and now you're in it. But your path to get there, it was a little bit different than most.
Yeah, I started racing on iRacing, which is kind of unique and very different than other guys start racing. You know, I didn't run go-karts as a kid. I didn't really grow up in a racing family, so I was just so passionate about racing in general that I wanted to get involved in the driving side of it. And that came later when I was 14 or 15 years old, but thankfully I had iRacing to use as a platform to get started and hone my skills.
William Byron's a great story from our perspective because, I'll be honest, we didn't know anything about him. He was the one that told the story about how he used iRacing at home and was proving to be really good at it, and his dad took notice and said, you know what, why don't we get a Legends car and we'll go try this for real.
That bump in turn 1, that bump is, I mean, that's right where it is on the racetrack.
I mean, most of the track layout stuff's exactly the same, which is really helpful if you're going to the racetrack for the first time.
So the simple fact that we're shifting, that's kind of, like I wouldn't have guessed that we would have had to do that when we started this, based on the video games I've played in the past. There's iRacing and there's video games. What's generally the difference between the two?
Yeah, so iRacing's more of a simulator. It's not as much of a game, I think. They always say that, you know, guys that race iRacing all the time want to say how it's a simulator, not a game.
We are not a video game. You know, Gran Turismo, Forza, you buy one of those games in the store, you take it home and you run it on your console, you're gonna play that for 20 or 30 hours. What's really unique about our product is that people spend hundreds of hours on our product because it's not easy.
It's really more of a tool. It's kind of like a flight simulator. It's more of something you use to hone your skills at a higher level instead of just going on there and picking up a controller.
Oh, you ran me up the track.
That was a pretty good race.
What was different from the iRacing in terms of when you got loose or when you got tight when you were in the real car?
Honestly, in some ways it was easier. And that sounds crazy, but you could feel the car more.
That doesn't sound crazy. It makes me kind of curious, though.
Yeah, you could feel the car more, and in person I had that extra, or I had extra skills to use or extra senses to kind of use in the car. So my sense of smell you don't have on iRacing, and your sense of, I guess, feel and danger and fear factor is not there.
I guess the fact that you think that the real cars are easier than the iRacing, that tells us why you're having the level of success that you are at this point right now.
Byron jumps to the lead on the restart.
He's so nervous, he knows how close he is to his first win at this moment.
Career win number 1 for William Byron comes at Iowa. What a night for William Byron.
Towards the end of that season, the announcement's made. You're going to the 24 car.
There was a big announcement earlier this week out of Hendrick Motorsports. 19-year-old William Byron will now occupy that car for the 2018 season.
There's a lot of pressure that comes with hopping in the 24 car.
Driving the Cup car itself is obviously a challenge, but I knew, you know, I just trusted my instinct, kind of trusted what I've done to get to this point. So, you know, the boss didn't really put that much pressure on me. Mr. Hendrick kind of told me to just go out there and make sure I can learn this year. You were running, that was like you ran half second faster than you ever did. Right there.
That's your way of saying bless his heart before you say you suck. When you look at iRacing and you look at the impact it had on your career, and yes, you had to go learn the driving aspect of it, but it's what kind of got you started. What role do you think it's going to play in kids coming up?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we have just started race number 2. We have Andrew Carl, Chris Owen, and Carl Reindler in the cars right now. We've gotten off to a nice, clean start as the red car takes the inside line there. I believe that's Andrew Carl. Carl Reindler just having to back out of that move there. Nice and deep on the brakes. Turn number 3, and a nice, clean start around number 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. We need the cars to get up, but not cars that were last. You can see the blue car. On the exit, and he has not at the start he wanted. He was the highest seeded driver for this split. Unfortunately, he has not got himself out to the lead. The driver that's got him out to the lead, Chris Aon at the moment. So he has had a fantastic start in the red car, which looks absolutely fantastic. But the white car having a few more issues, and that's Carl Reindler. Lots of experience in the V8 Supercar, but has yet the experience. But Carl right behind him has to go through the elevation change, through the grass as well. It's Andrew Cole and Carl Reindler able to hold on to that spot for a little bit longer because issues for Carl really slow down. So he will have to recover from that. Carl Reindler in second at the moment. That gets him through into the next round. But he will have Andrew Cole, who is an incredibly quick driver in his own right, that chasing him down.
Absolutely, but there are very different conditions to what some of our sim racers are accustomed to. Bo and I were having a bit of a race before the event started, and the perspective that you have when you, as Andrew Cole just gets very close to the wall there and just gives it a little bit of a rub, a bit of oversteer as he came out of turn number 1 there. But the perspective of the other cars around you is very, very difficult to deal with, and it's very different to what Bo and I are accustomed to. So maybe Andrew Cole just getting a bit off foot there, and also these guys have been practicing by themselves all day. But this is the first time that they've actually had to race with other cars on the track.
And that is such a difficult thing to do, especially for those that aren't experienced in VR. To go into something like this, there's something for emotion with VR, you've got everything going on, you've got 7 laps, you've got pressure to be in the top 2 as well. There is so much riding on this race for these drivers to get everything right. And at the moment, Andrew Cole has not done that. Second highest seated, he should in theory be the race winner, but it just hasn't happened. Tracked under pressure, not able to perform to the level he needs at the moment. But the good news is, he has 5 laps. Chase down Carl Reindler. We've got Chris Amon on screen at the moment, and he's doing a fantastic job, but Andrew Cole has work to do. But look at the way he's just got the gap down. Carl Reindler locks the inside front. Turn number 1, which is not an easy corner to break for. The tyre is unloaded the entire way through, but Andrew just continues to hunt down just a little bit more. Reindler goes a little bit wide. Cole thinks about the inside, has to back out of it though. A bit more patient than Josh Anderson showed, and it might pay off for him as Reindler a little bit wide again, but again, no way through on this side of the circuit, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. Carl Reindler doing a good job there, even though he did run a bit wide, able to keep up that momentum, not allowing Andrew Cole to sneak up and make an attacking move on him just yet. I think Andrew Cole's going to have to look into the last few final corners or try and provoke Carl into a mistake, but it does have to be said, Carl probably being the most experienced person on the grid, not necessarily in sim racing. In fact, yesterday when he came down to this event was the first time that Carl had jumped into a simulator, so adapting very quickly, and Andrew Carl, obviously one of Australia's best sim racers, so being able to hold him up for the time being. But Andrew Carl is looking very racy now, very heavy on the brakes as they come down into turn 1, and the gap is now just 0.3 of a second. Andrew Carl running himself all over the back of the car of Carl Reindler as they come into turn number 3, and looking to get some nice traction. Goes up the inside, to the forward, down the inside into turn number 5. Carl Reindler just gets a little bit of a bump as Andrew Carl comes through and says, "Thank you very much, Carl, I'll take that away from you." And Carl's now going to have to try and get himself back up to the back of that car as we see a replay here, Bo.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get an idea of what just happened. As you can see, Andrew Cole dancing on the limit out of turn number 2 as he chases down the driver of Carl Reindler now into turn number 3, and he got a brilliant run. Reindler just pushing a bit wide, dive down to the inside. And to this point, Reindler just turns in a little bit too sharply, and a bit of door banging to be had. Reindler goes for a trip in the gravel, and unfortunately that turned his screen into a bit of a frown as he now has the pressure on him to perform at the highest level and make sure that he can chase Andrew Cole back down. But the trouble is, there is a gap of about 1.7 seconds separating them, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew Cole, with a bit of free air in front of him, is definitely no slouch. And he was actually the second highest qualifier in the online qualifiers, and managed to seat himself very highly this afternoon. So he's definitely one to watch out for as a possible contender for the win in this series today and tomorrow. But Chris Owen has done a fantastic job out in first, while Andrew and Carl have been battling out to a 7.1 second lead as it stands right now. Taking it very calm, taking it very cruisy, and he's putting in some nice fast laps as he's done 7.7. And Andrew Carl and Carl Reindler still looking to get close to those times as it is, but a nice job from Chris in this opening heat for him.
Yeah, exactly what he needed to do. He was very quick in practice. He surprised a lot of people for not having a huge iRacing background to really just jump in and adapt immediately. And he has done fantastically. So we're looking at Andrew Cole on screen at the moment. And he has brought that gap down a little bit, putting in the fastest lap of the race, 0.6 of a second quicker than driver Chris Aon last time around, and 3 times quicker than his fastest lap. But unfortunately for Carl, he's just throwing the car around a little bit too much. And it was that throwing it around a bit too much that might have cost him a shot at this race win, because by having to fire Kyle Weinler, that opened up that 7 gap, which gave Chris that advantage that he needed. And at the moment, without jinxing him or anything, it looks like Chris might be able to hold on to that to the end.
Yeah, I'd say so. And even though Kyle Weinler is the most experienced man on the grid, he is, as we said, yesterday was the first time that he has jumped into a simulator. So it does have to be said that to go banging doors with one of Australia's best sim racers is definitely very respectable. And Carl has obviously raced everything from A1 GP to supercars to indeed these cup cars, albeit a slightly older version of it. So he's very experienced in all sorts of disciplines, and I'm sure Andrew Carl would feel pretty good being able to bump the next supercar driver out of the way and move himself up into a qualifying position for this event.
That's one of the beautiful things about this event, is it allows drivers from the virtual world to fight with their real world heroes in an even more different stage. We're used to seeing it on the stage of iRacing. We've got Andrew Cole in the wall!
No, that's Chris! That's Chris Owen! I think!
No, it's the one car! So all of a sudden the blue car has found itself into the wall.
Cole,
it's
yeah.
Andrew Cole. His day is done. Out of nowhere, his day is over. He's the second highest seeded driver in this event. And all of a sudden, exiting turn 2, it's all gone pear-shaped. So Kyle Weinler will find himself back into a spot. Andrew looks devastated, shaking his head as well, lets it all go, and he is furious with himself as we're getting a replay on screen, exiting turn number 2, lights up the rear tires, and there was no catching it. And that was just such a shame. And how low this nose of the car is, Zach, it needs to dig into the tires very easily as Chris Owen is about to cross the start finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a fantastic job there for Chris Owen as he comes across the line and takes out his first heat in the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. But, it just goes to prove, I guess, one of the points of even in real racing that very much could have been an accident for Andrew Carl, where he couldn't have been pulled out of the wall or couldn't have found a reverse gear. So unfortunately, that's a big upset for Andrew Carl. As we said before, he was a big tip to possibly even win this event, as he was the second highest qualified sim racer in the online qualification. So very disappointing, but not disappointing for Chris Owen. And Carl Reimler will be able to come back and join us for another round later this afternoon as well, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wait and see how this all pans out. But a great result there for Kyle Weinler to make it through. As you
We've been doing a few laps today and getting close to some of the times that these guys are doing, but it's very difficult to be consistent, and the car just kind of wants to skate itself all over the place. The rear tyres a little bit, try and put that traction down as you come out of the exit of the corner. Something like that that's just happened to Andrew Carl can happen. So very unfortunate mistakes there for Andrew, but hopefully he can, bounce back from that and come and join us at another event and try, because we are going to have many more, hopefully, of these virtual sim racing showdowns. I think we already have a couple that are in the works of being penciled in, so definitely have to look out for that. But it has been a great show so far, and again, well done to Chris Aon for taking out his first heat of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that first win on the board is just going to build that confidence more and more and more. So he's going to be in for a great event, hopefully, if he can keep this performance up, keep himself at the front. He managed to get a great start, kept out of trouble, and he did all the right things. But we will go to a break. We'll be back from Sydney Motorsport Park after a short little while.
Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerrick at the line. the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown 2018 here at Sydney Motorsport Park, brought to you by Motum Simulations and the fantastic guys over at CAMS as well. And Zach, we're up to our third heat already, and we have a great lineup which includes some Porsche veterans, drivers that have never driven a Porsche, and those that have driven a Porsche but only the LMP1 version.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a pretty interesting heat. We have Aaron Young, Dylan Shepherd, and Daniel Benefield in the cars at the moment, and they're just preparing to get lined up on the grid. But yeah, this is going to be a very interesting round. Dylan Shepherd pretty quick in the Porsches. I've raced against him a few times and gone wheel to wheel. He's very fast. We also have Aaron Love, who's doing double duties here, racing real cars on this weekend as well. And then Daniel Benefield, who is a very, very fast prototype car. Not very accustomed to these more weighty, less downforce cup cars, but he has been adapting very well over the weekend, and he's been spending a lot of time in this garage picking up tips and tricks off other drivers who have been coming through the sim. So it will be interesting to see if he can put any of those little things that he's learned into his race this afternoon.
Well, that's what you have to do sometimes. If you don't have a lot of track time, you have to look at what everyone else is doing, see what they're doing, and trying to learn from it as well. And so for Daniel Benefield, it's clearly working out quite well for him, as he was one of the highest seeded drivers as well. And you know, he's obviously very used to prototypes. He's used to the high speeds. He's used to the pressure of having to pass cars very, very quickly. As we will begin to get ready towards heat number 3, we've already seen one big name fall. Will we see a second? As all 3 cars are on the grid in order, 3, 2, 1. That's how the lights will go out as well. Any second from now, the ropes are rising. And for heat number 3, we are lights out. And away we go. It's a great start from the number 1 car already ahead of the number 2 in the red. So that is a great start. But how is Will Bears a crossover already for 2? Trying to get into the optimal line, carry the speed into 1. But at the moment, there's no change of position as the blue car right underneath the back of the white car at the moment, the 3. Really struggling for exit grip in the 1, making a very good use of his pace. He looks to the inside at turn number 3, down to the inside. Oh, a bit of contact as well to 3. He's turned in a little bit. They're all keeping across on the exit, flying in the air as well, as they all go a little off the circuit, but it is still the 1 car in the 3 in the third in the second, and the number 2 car definitely not in second, but with the 3 car bouncing off the curbs at the exit of the bridge, maybe an opportunity to get that spot might just appear any second now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice clean start on these guys. A little bit of a touch on the exit of turn 3, but that's just hard, close racing. And these guys, as we said, they've been testing by themselves all morning, and all the qualifying was done yesterday, as we see the red and the white car almost coming together as they came through that little tricky chicane towards the end of the lap. And I think that's Aaron Love in the number 3 car, and Daniel Benefield in the number 2 car, now starting to make his way onto the rear bumper of that car, and looks like Dylan Shepherd in that blue. Oh, and looks like Aaron Love and Daniel Benefield have run a little bit wide as they come into turn number 2 there, and Daniel Benefield just going to show the nose as they come up to 3, almost contact, just managing to pull it up, and Aaron Love now having to put on a bit of an defensive drive as Daniel Benefield again showing the nose as they come through 4. Daniel Benefield really looking for a way past, but he's still got 5 laps to go. He doesn't need to pull anything too drastic. Wants to sit behind and wait for a bit of an opportunity. But stuff what Zach says, Daniel Benefield is going to go down the inside, runs it off the track, and Aaron Love is going to drive a bit of a cut under with this contact. And Aaron Love is going to lose out on that one. But he's had some good pace this weekend, started on the front row of the grid, but now he's going to have to try and make his way back up to Daniel Benefield. Aaron Love has a very good racing career ahead of him, and unfortunately, just a little bit of contact. Daniel Benefield was not leaving much room there, but yeah, very, very close racing indeed from those 2 guys.
Yeah, and these Porsche Cup cars produce some of the best racing you'll see. They're not affected by dirty air. They've got really long braking distance as well. So if you're feeling opportunistic, like I think that was Aaron Love in the background there, was into turn number 1, you can make up some ground. But at the moment, the only driver making ground is Dylan Shepherd out front. Of course, he's driving for OPR. He does some work with Motum Sim Racing as well. And at the moment, he's using that Porsche experience to get a massive lead of almost 5 seconds now. So really putting in some great laps. His 7-1 was his first lap as well. So he's really flying at the moment. Benefield in second, not able to match that pace as he goes into the tricky section of the track where it's just constantly undulating, constantly moving around. The Porsche is one of those cars that's really tough to master, especially at elevation change, like we're coming up to Zach, because the front does get so light.
It does, and then the rear starts to get light on the other end of it. Seen a lot of guys, including myself, coming through that McCain at the end there, completely crossed up and just managing to have to pick it all back together before they go into the braking zone, straighten the car up so that they don't turn themselves as they come into the final corner there. But as you said, Dylan Shepherd, he's very experienced in this Porsche Cup car, as Aaron Love running a little bit wide. He hasn't fallen off the back of Daniel Benefield at the moment, so with just 3 laps to go, if he can keep it nice and smooth, Aaron Love still can make it up onto the back of Benefield here and maybe have a bit of a go. And Daniel Benefield, you know, he was pretty hot getting past Aaron Love in that first opening section of the race there, so if Aaron Love is able to catch back up to him, it wouldn't be surprising to see him try and pull a bit of a similar move, be a bit more aggressive with some door rubbing as he tries to come through.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and Love is no stranger to sim racing as well, and last time around, he was actually 700ths of a second quicker than Benefield. Motorsport's always about fine margins, and those fine margins add up lap after lap after lap. So if Love can just apply a bit more pressure, hope Benefield makes maybe a little error as well. Like you said, there's every chance that it's going right down to the final lap is Benefield. Oh, sorry, we're looking at Dylan Shepherd, making his way into turn number 1, not pushing too hard, just doing what he has to do. But it's actually Daniel Benefield now with the fastest lap of the race. As we're hearing all kinds of brakes squealing into turn number 1, which is a very tricky part of the circuit to get right lap after lap after lap. And Benefield, with that fastest lap of the race last time around, pulls away by 0.2 of a second over Love. But Zach, the first heat we saw wasn't the most close race we've ever seen. This split we have at the moment, last time around, all of these times have been 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are all doing a fantastic job of keeping those cars on the road. But Dylan Shepherd had a mistake, I think, on this lap, because that gap was at nearly 4.5 seconds is now down to 1. So I'm not sure what has happened, whether he's put the curve and he had a big mistake. The closing speed for Daniel Benefield right now is immense as they come into the final corner, and something's got to be wrong with Dylan Shepherd. Oh, Daniel Benefield into the wall on the exit of the final corner, looking to take out this heat. He wants to make the pass as they come down into turn 1. It's a very risky move. Daniel Benefield's going to go down the inside, forcing Shepherd out to the outside. He's off the track, and just to pull it up, just gets himself back on and back into the fight for the lead again. But Dylan Shepherd, the pace just dropped off dramatically in this last lap, and now Aaron Love's all involved, and it's all going It's all going on for the lead.
It absolutely is, and Lover's in this battle as well now, and is right underneath the back of Shepard, who's struggling to make the apex into the gravel, hurting a few more temps as well, and look, you can see they're basically in the back there, heading over the bridge, and now with just a lap and a half to go, it all comes down to this. Where can Love make an opportunity happen, and can he make it stick as he gets a little bit out of shape through the elevation change, but so does Shepard! Shepard's in the grass, and he's going to go around, he's spun, and our race leader, who's dominating this race from the front, absolutely in control. He said he was the Porsche master, but the Porsche can bite, and it's just bit its master.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is a big shame. Luckily for Dylan Shepard, though, he does currently have the fastest lap of any of the people who have been eliminated so far, so he is in contention for that wildcard entry. We'll get a replay on screen now for you, and just running a little bit wide on the entry to the corner, and Aaron Love doing a beautiful job there to not just absolutely go careering into the side of the car of Dylan Shepard. So Dylan Shepard's going to have to now sit on a hope and a prayer and just wish that no one can eclipse his current best lap of 1:07.158. That is the time for anyone who will be eliminated to beat if they're looking to get that wildcard entry. But Daniel Benefield, after moving to the back of the grid, has worked himself up through Aaron Love, has worked himself past Dylan Shepard, and now as he comes through the final corners of this race, he looks like he's going to take out his heat number 3 here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. And that just goes to show you, Bo, that no matter what happens in these little 7-lap races, you can never keep up. You've got to keep on pushing as Daniel Benefield now comes over the line to take out heat number 3 of the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown.
Great time from Benefield. We said he was at the back at the start of the race. That was the worst possible place to be in this race, but out of nowhere, he's managed to pull up Bradbury, takes the race win, and there's Dylan Shepard across the line now, and that is a case of what could have been. He was doing a fantastic job, but unfortunately, it all goes wrong, and Aaron Love there doing a bit of burnouts as well. That is a great result for him as he gets himself through into the next round of this qualifying as well. So being the last seated driver is never a bad thing. You can capitalize from other people's mistakes, and he has been able to do just that. So we'll see if we can get a word from Daniel Benefield in just a moment. And we're just having a look there at the rig of Dylan Shepard, who is actually talking quite a lot to the staff at the moment. So perhaps a little bit of an issue there on the rig or something of that nature. But when it comes to these simulations, Zach, there's so much going on, and it really is up to the driver to get everything right. As we'll just see if we can get Daniel Benefield to come over for an interview, and we'll see. That was a fantastic race for him, as he managed to take the race win from last on the grid, which is not an easy thing to do at all. But we just got Daniel Benefield coming across now, and Daniel, mate, that did not look easy for you. You were at the back initially, you had to work your way through, but out of nowhere, you've won the race.
Yeah, that was a less than ideal start. I think that's a bit of an understatement, but yeah, I think Dylan was a bit unlucky with, I think he had some issues with his sim, so he was a bit unlucky, but yeah, I managed to somehow come through with the win after being last at the end of that one.
Yeah, fantastic. And you don't drive these Porsche Cup cars too much. You love the Porsche LMP1. You're a prototype, absolute freak. But when it comes to these Cup cars, there's a lot more weight. Your ABS is a lot different as well. How are you finding the challenges of adapting your driving style for this new car?
It's very different. Obviously, I'm used to very much a point-and-shoot type of driving style, and these cars kind of roll around quite a bit. So it's very different to what I'm used to running, but I'm getting there slowly.
Fantastic. And just finally, of course, you're getting to use these fantastic Motum rigs as well. And how has that challenge been for you using the VR and also the motion rigs as well, which is completely different to what you have at home?
Yeah, like other than the motion, it's actually quite similar to my rig at home. But so obviously the motion's the big step for me personally. But it's great because you can feel what the car's doing a lot more, and it's a lot more feedback than what I'm used to at home.
Well, fantastic. That was Daniel Benefield for that's Positive Sim Racing. So a recent team move for him, but clearly it's all positive at the moment, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing a fantastic job there to take out his heat. And we are just having a bit of a look at one of the sims at the moment. We do have the VR headsets on, and it looks like we possibly may have had an issue with one of the VR headsets. What caused Dylan Shepard to have a few issues in his heat there, so we'll see if we can get those rectified. Might just cut to a short break while we're making that all happen, and we will be back with you in just a few moments here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, proudly presented on the iRacing Esports Network, supported by Motum Simulations and CAMS, and we'll be back with you very shortly.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Welcome back to the Sydney Motorsport Park for the 2018 Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. Heat 3 just happened and it was a cracker with all kinds of drama in the action as well. But one driver that will be up next, Zach, is quite a character when it comes to sim racing. He's in heat number 4. We've got David Haynes from a team name that I'm not going to pronounce on stream, but you've been in these Motum rigs before, but never on the iRacing platform. What is it about the iRacing platform and the Motum Sims as well that really stands out for you?
Oh, I think it's probably just one of the better platforms out there. We've got all the digitally scanned cars, we've got the digitally scanned tracks. All of the realism is exactly what we want for this, and it's a good event, and it's great to see all three of the rigs here together, and hopefully it'll be a close race.
Yeah, well, it should be a close race. Some of the seating times we've seen have been incredibly close. You are a driver that does drive the Porsche quite a bit. You've done VLN in the past as well in the Porsche, so you do know the car quite well, but you've got the challenge of jumping onto an entirely different rig. That's not the wheel you own. That's not the pedals you have, and you don't have the motion rig either. So adapting that wise, your driving style to the new conditions, how's that been?
Yeah, no, it's difficult, I guess. It's always a change to what you're used to, but we've got a little bit of practice time this morning, and in reality, it's the same for everyone, to throw out an old cliche in motorsports. Just, I think this sort of heat racing elimination thing, it throws a lot up in the air, and you've just got to be clean, and, two people will go through from this heat, and there'll be two people who have a clean race and get to the end.
Well, that's what you've got to do. We've already seen a few times that drivers have been a little bit, opportunistic in their moves and haven't been able to do it. But nonetheless, we'll wrap it up there, David. So thank you so much for coming out, and good luck in the heat as well. So there we go. And there we go, David Haynes. And we will get ready for the next heat in just a few moments' time as well, as we're getting ready on the grid for heat number 4. So, David, getting the best preparation thanks to us, but it's always good to be a little bit annoying sometimes, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to get some insight from the drivers before they have to jump into the sim and get themselves into the zone that they need to be. But very good point that David brought up. You just need to be clean and get yourself to the end in the front two cars. And we have seen quite a few drivers today making some pretty drastic moves to try and move themselves through the field, and it hasn't always paid off. So hopefully David can take his own advice and keep it nice and clean, and we can see him in the next round here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. But it is going to be difficult for him. He does have two other very talented drivers in that of Aaron Lee and Daniel Shields, who he needs to beat in order to make himself through to that round. And it's going to be, I think this will be one of the better, will be definitely a heat to watch today. I think all these guys are pretty evenly matched, and they're just getting on the grid now and ready to go.
They absolutely are. You can hear the revs in the background building. We built to 7,000 RPM, and we're about to put it all the way up to turn number 1. It's a long run to the start finish line. Get underway, and already the number 2 car up. Daniel Shields gets a great start. He's going to go right into the lead. He's never played iRacing before today, never driven on Oran Park either, so turn 1 could be a bit tricky. As they all bundle up, they're all got contact. The one car of Aaron Lee goes around. The driver, David Haynes, has to go through the gravel as well, so it's not been the clean start that he wanted, but he's still on track, so that can't be said for Aaron Lee. He finds himself all the way at the back of the field, but Daniel Shields leads. Never driven this track before today, Zach, and all of a sudden he's leading his heat.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing a really nice job so far, and David Haynes and Aaron Lee getting together. I mean, very, very difficult at the best of times to get one of these Porsche Cup cars through that turn number 1 and 2 complex. Even more difficult to try and get 2 through there. So now Aaron Lee, he has to really start putting in some good times, and he's going to have to do he's going to have to put in a big effort to catch up to David Haynes before the end of this race. So now might be the time where Aaron Lee just tries to get one very, very fast lap in and try and get himself into that wildcard position. We have seen drivers making unforced errors as well, even with a big lead, and with that inexperience that you were talking about on iRacing for Daniel Shields, it's not out of the realms of impossibility that he might pitch a break coming into turn 1 or at any other of the difficult corners here at Oran Park and make a big mistake that could lose him the lead or even a qualifying position in this race. But for the time being, he does have a nice lead over David Haynes, 2 seconds, and Aaron Lee a few behind them as David Haynes just carries quite a bit too much speed into turn number 3 there. Might have just missed his braking marker, but managed to keep it on the road for the time being. And Aaron Lee still plugging away. We'll have to see what lap times he starts putting in as he'll get his first flying lap in this time round.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what he has to do. He has to nail lap, and we have seen Aaron Lee have a lot of pace over the years. Of course, a recent signing, the Evolution Racing team, is the one car goes around. That's the leader, I believe. That was Aaron Lee. So he's had another disaster, and maybe that's just pushing it a little bit too hard, Zach. He needs the lap time, and this is a circuit that really, you know, allows the driver to make mistakes. If you have a lapse in judgment, there are bumps, there are curbs, there's grass everywhere, there's no runoff zone either, so to manage yourself to get into the top 2 or to get that fastest lap, you've got to put it all on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what Aaron needs to do now is maybe just go for a bit of a cool-down lap. He's 14 seconds off the lead, he's 9 seconds behind, or 11 seconds even behind David Haynes. So I'm pretty sure it's pretty much a done deal on that front. So maybe he just needs to do a bit of a cool-down lap, get those tyres reset, get his mind reset, and just try and pump in a couple of qualifying laps and see if he can get himself back to that wildcard competition. Dylan Shepherd, as it stands right now, is currently in that position on a 1:07.1. So once Aaron starts firing quick times, we will give you an update as to how close he is to getting himself into that position. And we are on board with Aaron Lee now, and he does look like he is pushing quite heavily to get himself around this tight little Oran Park circuit, which we in the Australian motorsport community do dearly miss. But unfortunately, that's one of the things that you have to deal with this stuff. We might be saying goodbye to another track in Australia fairly soon, but hopefully something can be salvaged there. But in the meantime, Aaron Lee continues his way around. David Haynes still trying to catch back up to Daniel Shields. So David Haynes is starting just to look a little bit uncomfortable. Probably can relax. He does have 10 seconds to the car behind, but with limited running in this car for the rest of the day and for tomorrow, could be a good time for him to start exploring the limits of the car. Where's really, really fast and where's really, really not. So he'll just keep on pushing as Aaron Lee tries to get that fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. He's pushing, but so is Daniel Shields, and we've got him on screen at the moment. Our race leader is doing a great job. Of course, he is a part of the VBGaming.de squad that runs over on another one of the racing titles that is available, but he's not familiar to iRacing, but he is familiar now to leading races. He's a very quick sim racer in his own right, and Zach, this is a tricky circuit, so what we might do is jump on board our race leader and go for a hot lap around Oran Park Motor Speedway.
Absolutely, and coming over the start and finish the line now, coming into this very tricky braking zone for turn 1 on the brakes and turning slightly, and then on the brakes just a little bit harder, trying to make that apex, but it is very easy to pitch an inside brake and just miss that apex there. Same again for turn number 3, lay on the brakes to the white line, take a wide turn in, take it shallow at the apex and try and run it out to the edge. This is a very tricky corner, very bumpy as we see here. Look at him as he progresses those bumps there as they come through turn number 4, now over the bridge, and this is where the fun section of the track really begins. Still quite bumpy, a right-hander, then another right-hander, just to dab on the brake, turn in, and then a quick left, and then another left as they come up the hill, Get a little bit of oversteer on the exit here, as you can see, just getting a little bit opposite block, and this chicane here, very difficult high speed, blind as you come over the crest, and a very hard braking zone into the final corner. Very nice timing up there from Daniel Shields, and it's absolutely no surprise after watching that he has a 5.4 second lead in this race at the moment.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, isn't he? As he goes across the finish line to do his fastest lap of the race in 8.0, so that is incredible pace from him as he dives in turn number 1 now. But keep an eye on now what Aaron Lee is doing, because he's only got an 8.1 on the board, so he has a lot of time to find to get that spot, that wild card, continue on his journey. Does an 8.5 this time around, so it's not fast enough again. So Aaron Lee, I'm looking at him right now in the rig. His face is now just, it's a lot more serious. The pressure is on. Hard on the brakes as well, and he is working. You can see center of screen there in the ERT shirt, the black with the red and the yellow on the sleeves as well. A very, very prominent sim racing, a lot of history as well. And Aaron Lee goes for a little bit of a moment. You can see that he just barely catches it. And he can add to a lot of that great history and win the second live event for ERT. Because let's not forget, Zach, that they won the first one.
They did indeed. They won the first Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, the demo event, and James Allen, who is of course a real-life LMP2 driver, managing to walk away with that. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, he walked away with some pretty cool prizes, but not quite as cool as the prize that we have on offer today, which is, of course, a test drive in a real-life Formula 4 car, which is pretty much, as far as a sim racer is concerned, is the best possible outcome for a victory at an event. So Daniel Shields right now, he's accustomed to driving Formula cars, and I dare say that he would be very, very keen to see himself inside the cockpit of a Formula 4 car. And just looking at Daniel Shields on the sim right now, he does look like he is the perfect size for Formula 4 cars. But we are on the final lap now. Daniel Shields coming through the final section of the racetrack, coming up to the final chicane, the blind chicane. Turn right, hope you make right, turn left, not knowing, and then don't run it out too wide because you can easily get a break on that outside edge and turn the car around. But Daniel Shields managed to keep it all together in heat number 4, and he just starts getting a little bit tailing, gives himself a little bit of fun as he comes over the line with a very professional drive there from Daniel Shields. David Haynes is going to retain that position number 2 and will move himself into round number 2 at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. But unfortunately for Aaron Lee, we'll have to see his time crossing the line. It doesn't look like it is good enough. It looks like he possibly might have even exactly, it was actually one of his slower than his last lap. So unfortunately, Aaron Lee has been knocked out of the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown as we see it at the moment. But congratulations to Daniel Shields and David Haynes for a good drive and moving themselves through to the next round.
Yeah, it was a fantastic drive from them, wasn't it? And they did exactly what they had to do. And David Haynes said he would keep it clean. There was a bit of contact at the first turn, but nonetheless managed to walk away with it as well. So great result for him as well. And he will progress to the next series of rounds. But before we get into the next round, Zach, we have another heat coming up, heat number 5. And there are some more fast drivers in that, but the racing we've seen so far, it's been pretty vicious when they have been together. They've been close, they've been feisty. What are you expecting from this next heat, especially when you consider this Porsche is not the easiest car to master?
No, absolutely not. I think, as we were saying earlier, I mean, you and I we actually did a bit of a demo race prior to the event starting and going live on the iRacing Esports Network this afternoon. And one thing that you and I both noticed, Bo, was that especially just from the VR perspective, is the perspective of the opponent cars, the cars that you're actually racing against, is extremely different to what you would, or what we would be accustomed to using just normal, computer screens like most of us sim racers do. Obviously, some guys here do have the VR setups already, and they're very lucky to have that, and they'll be a little accustomed to that. But that is a very difficult thing to get accustomed to, and something that is possibly catching a few of these guys out when they go to race close quarters with each other today.
Absolutely, and one spot that is close quarters is open wheel racing, and one driver that is familiar with that is Daniel Shields, who does indeed make his way over for an interview. And Daniel, before today, nice little wave there, you've never actually driven around Oran Park before today, and in your first heat, you're a race winner.
Oh, well, I got a bit lucky with the start. I think they had a bit of problems and so on. So since then, I had like a 5-second lead, I think, from the first corner. So there wasn't too much I had to do on that race. We'll see in the other ones. But yeah, it was nice. Nice to get a bit of luck. I normally don't know racing, so I enjoyed that. Yeah,
no, it was fantastic, and it wasn't just luck as well. You ended up with the fastest lap of the race by over a 1/10 of a second as well. So some pace in there for someone that doesn't play iRacing.
Thank you. I'll keep trying improving.
Yeah, well, that's all you can do. So great effort there. That was Daniel Shields, who does take a race victory in his first heat, which is not an easy thing to do with the pressure that's on these drivers. We're gearing up for another heat, and we have some big names in sim racing, including what was once the world's best sim racer.
Yes, absolutely. Sitting in the middle sim number 2, Mitchell McLeod, the world's best sim racer at one point, going to be getting in, and yep, I see that, Mitch. Thank you very much, mate. Same to you. We've also got Richard Hampstead and James Keeney in this round as well. James Keeney doing some real-life racing as well. Not sure if he's doing it this weekend, but he's racing production cars this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. So he's got a 4-hour endurance race tomorrow, pardon me. So we do wish him the best of luck for that. But for the time being, he is here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, and he will be facing off against the world's best sim racer, Mitchell McLeod, and Richard Hampstead from TTL Esports. Richard came 3rd at the last Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. So he wants to do a couple better spots this time and try and walk away with the top prize.
Yeah, well, absolutely. He's proved he can handle himself under pressure, and a Scots champion as well, so he knows what he's doing. Comes to those kind of events. But at the moment, there is still two very quick drivers he has to beat before he even gets a chance at the final, which is still going to be on tomorrow. So there's a bit of time to wait before we do get to see who walks away with the grand prize of a test in an Australian Formula 4 car. But at the moment, we're overlooking sunny Oran Park. Great to see we've actually got some nice weather for once here at Oran Park. And no clouds to be seen inside, or at least none that are threatening rain just yet. Hashtag soon. Heat 5 is getting ready any second now. The rigs and the VR headsets are all set to go. In fact, we've got some drivers that are so serious about this here today, they've even bought their driving gloves.
Yeah, well, whatever you need to do to get comfortable, you know, and I'm sure many of us sim racers do use, in fact, Kenny's even got his racing boots on as well, and they're getting quite a little extra wear this weekend than they would normally, but you know, if that's what's comfortable, that's what you've got to do, and you want to be relaxed when you're doing these events. I think we've seen a few drivers maybe putting a little bit extra pressure on themselves, given there is a fairly big prize on the line, and just being able to stay cool, calm, and collected is going to be one of those things you need to do to make sure that you can walk away with a victory today. But the cars are starting to rev up now, and we are ready for round number 5 here at Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. The revs rise, the cars are just about away, the clutches are out, and a good start there from James Keane. Mitchell McLeod got a good start as well. Richard Hampstead just a little bit late off, but able to maintain in second position as they turn up. Richard Hampstead going to have a look down the inside at turn number 1. James Keane leaving the door wide open. He's seen this happening today. He's got to keep us nice and clean. They'll give him the defensive line down into turn number 1 as Mitchell McLeod is looking to follow Richard Hampstead. Around the outside, Keane just popped the wheels a little bit, maintaining that position though, and pushing Mitchell McLeod out to the outside. So a nice clean start from these guys so far, and hopefully they can get some close quarters racing in for the next 7 or laps.
Yeah, we'll give a bit of rubbish to Mitchell McLeod. He is a very talented sim racer, and there is an opportunity. He will go for it, and just about was an opportunity there, as Kenny does not indeed make the apex that he would have wanted. But at the moment, Hampstead flying out front, but it's all gone wrong for Keane. He's going around and narrowly avoids flipping the back of Mitch McLeod as well, so very lucky to get away from that. We'll try and get a replay up on screen as well for that one, and here we are coming down into the very undulating section of circuit. Gets a lot of that curb, clutch bounces, steps out into oversteer, and around he would go. Mitch McLeod was very lucky not to get tagged there and pulled to a spin himself. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to do these Porsche Cup cars. They don't like to bounce around a lot, and unfortunately James is picking up a little bit of that curve on the inside, unsettling the car to the point where it was non-recoverable. Richard Hampstead just running a little bit deep into turn number 1 there, and yeah, as you said, we were giving Mitchell McLeod a little bit of shtick before, but he is a very talented iRacer. We tune into V8 Online on the Monday nights for the Strength of Field V8 Supercars race. We often find him there and putting in some very solid performances and always looking for a nice hard race. At the moment though, he's sitting 1.7 seconds behind Richard Hampstead, who is leading heat number 5 with 5 laps to go, and James Keane now has to put his head down. We've seen Keane do some very good work on the sim and in real life as well, so he's another guy who has the potential to take that fastest race lap for the wildcard entry into tomorrow's final. So he just needs to keep himself calm, keep his focus and his eyes on the prize, and just put in a nice, clean, fast lap to try and get that wildcard position.
Yeah, so just having a bit of an overlooking shot of all the rigs there. On the left is James Keane, so doing some nice work at runners, viewing more tyres squeal in the background. Just look at your top screen. That's Richard Hampstead off into the gravel as well. So, Mitch McLeod's going to be further as well. So, out of nowhere, of course, the Virtual Sim Racing Rallycross Showdown, they've all got away with it just a little bit. And James Keane, who's going to make it a hat trick. What is going on? It's going to run this oil on the circuit, guys.
Yeah, it looks pretty greasy down there. Looks like everyone's really pushing the limits of what's possible. Obviously, Keane really wants that fastest lap of the race, and he's trying to use every millimetre of the circuit to make that happen. On that occasion, though, he probably had just misjudged that by about half a foot or so there, so he's going to have to try and cool his tyres off and go for another one. Although if Richard Hampstead and Mitchell McLeod keep making mistakes like that, James Keane is going to be back on the end of them in no time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to make sure you're not making too many mistakes, and at the moment, it's just not happening for a few of our drivers, and being on foreign rigs to them, having different brake pressures, having different throttle applications, it's all a little bit different to what they're used to. So the consistency, the muscle memory isn't there, and especially for James Keane, he's got a lot of effects that, you know, that he's not used to in a real race car. Of course, out of nowhere, the velocity of the G-force isn't as violent as you would get in a real race car, but he is still having that force being applied, you know, under brakes, and as he applies the throttle through the corners as well. So it is simulated, but perhaps not in the extent that he would be used to, and not to mention that he's in an open environment, he's not enclosed in a car, so a lot of the senses that he would normally have are a little bit different, and when a real driver does come to sim racing, that's one of the real things they struggle to adapt to.
Yeah, absolutely, and on top of all of that as well is James is obviously driving in a car this weekend, so he's accustomed, he's tuned into a different track, he's tuned into a different set of muscle memory, which he won't want to, he definitely won't want to forget before this 4-hour endurance race tomorrow. So it's got all those other factors in play as well, but he is doing a fairly long time. Unfortunately, as it stands, not doing the lap times that are required to get him through to the next round, but he is doing a respectable job so far, and just seen Richard Hampstead come across the line, this time managed to make it through turn 1 just without going off the circuit. Had a bit of an inside block up there, but managed to pull it up just in time, as did Mitchell McLeod. James Keane, we'll see how he goes into turn number 1 here. Nice move, just a Brendel, about half a metre wide. Apex there for turn 1. Brought it back nicely and ran it out well to the exit. And his last lap was a 109.3, so he's going to have to pick up the pace a little bit if he wants that wildcard spot. As Richard Hampstead has an 8-0 and Mitchell McLeod an 8-4 the last time by. So fairly consistent times for the first two, and we'll see if Keane can push himself a little harder and get himself into that wildcard.
It's what he has to do, and he's really pushing at the moment, but the driver that's really been pushing is Mitch McLeod, who has a top speed of over 150 miles an hour, whereas the other two are in the 148 mile an hour bracket. So McLeod's really pushing. He's trying to get the lap time that's just not coming to him at the moment as he comes across the start-finish line. And within 2/10 of Hampstead that time, but Hampstead just doing that lap that he has to do, an 8 flat, 8-2 every single time. And that's getting himself into the race lead. That's why he is one of the drivers that made it through the final last time, Zach, and why he's doing a great job once again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about keeping it consistent through all of your rounds and making sure that you don't send it off the circuit. And even though he has done that so far, we've got very lucky that his competitors were very keen to do the same in their efforts to try and boost themselves up the order. Richard Hampstead still trying to use every little bit of track that he possibly can. And as we've been saying as well, these guys have very limited running in these cars this afternoon and tomorrow morning. And Richard with a little bit of a lead, a 3-second lead out to Mitchell McLeod, probably can start to just maybe explore that last or that extra few percent that he might want for the finals tomorrow if he does end up making it through, as he's going to have very limited time in the car between now and then.
Yeah, absolutely, and sometimes in racing, experience is what gets it so far, but last time around there was actually a mistake for Richard Hampstead, and he lost a second and a half, but well, he lost a second and a half compared to his best lap, but only 1 second to the driver of Richard McLeod, and that shows that he's not bulletproof, he's not invulnerable. Some of the drama we've seen already, such as Dylan Shepherd and Andrew Kyle, who are big favourites going into this one, are now facing the cans of the stopwatch for that wildcard entry. And James Keane, speaking of the wildcard entry, is not able to do it at the moment. He said his fastest lap of the race last time around, but still needs a lot more time to get himself into that spot. So for James Keane, it all rests on what he can do on this final lap here in the race wheel. I'm seeing the throttle applications. He is pushing. He is the closest on screen at the moment, in the bottom right off screen. So he's really pushing. He's doing everything he needs to. But as we head into the final 3 corners, Zach, it was Richard Hampstead at the end of this 7-lap heat that really stood on the top of the podium, and for good reason. He rounds the final quarter, not quite making the apex, but he doesn't need to. He's got 4 seconds up his sleeve. So Mitch McLeod, and Mitch will indeed join Richard Hampstead, going through to the next rounds after 7 laps here at Oran Park Raceway. For heat number 5, James Keane rounds the final corner, maximum commitment right out to the wall, makes the run to the start-finish line. He needs this lap time, he needs to make this happen. and it just has not. It was the fastest lap of the race. It was a 9.0. Fastest lap for him, but it just wasn't quite enough to knock Dylan Shepherd off his perch. Fortunately, James Keane will be sent walking home, but not before his production car race.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, James is, I'm not sure fortunate is the word I'm looking for. I'm sure he's worked very hard to get in the position that he's in, but he is fortunate in the sense that he does have a real race tomorrow that he's going to be able to attend, and we wish him the best of luck in that 4-hour production car race. All we will do for you, ladies and gentlemen, here from Sydney Motorsport Park, you may be able to hear in the background, we have some beautiful Formula 4 cars, I think, who are going around behind us and making a bit of a racket. We will take a short break here from the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, presented on the iRacing Esports Network and proudly supported by Motum Simulations and CAMS, the Confederate Australian Motorsports. So thank you for joining us, and we will be back with you very shortly.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
For the heat number 5, and we're underway as the Porsches head their way into turn number 1. We're getting live cameras on you for just a moment as we try and wait as they head into turn number 1. Late on the brakes, come the entire pack of 3 Porsche Cup cars, all wrestling, trying to get themselves into turn number 1. They've all made the apex pretty nicely, to be fair, single file as well. So this is a close start to this race at the moment. And it is the white car out in front at the moment. So the number 3 car doing the work that it needs to do and hoping not to finish in number 3. as they all go into the grass just a little bit, as they struggle for turn number 4, and one of the cars has gone a little bit wide. I think that's the blue car, just missing the apex side by side up the bridge. The car goes side by side, almost making contact as well, and narrowly avoiding it. So very close racing at the start of this race. And this is where it all picks up. We've got live cameras on action at the moment. The one car goes for a big moment over the press sack. And this is where the one car, sorry, which is the red car, really has to make a move. Sticking his mic, just do it right now. Okay, so Zach is having some mic issues at the moment, which is a shame to see. But the one car has a big moment there on the exit of the final corner. And now the 2 car in the red is just trying to get a little bit closer. But at the moment, as they get very tightly on the brakes now, and the blue car narrowly holds on. So very close at the moment, the red car, the number 2 thought about getting a crossover, but couldn't quite do it. So they're going to race into turn number 4. And this is where it's all about making the lines work. And the one car not quite doing it there, but the 2 car doesn't get the advantage as well. So at the moment, it's still the blue car that is holding on to that ever crucial spot to get yourself into the next round of action. And this is where the one car really has to try and make the advantage. Get that gap to his car behind, which might be about to battle for the second spot, which is the all-important spot to get through the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one car looking like it has recovered fairly well from that that start where he was starting to look very uncomfortable in the car, but looking a little bit more settled now, and using the rear of that car nicely as they come through the final corner. You can see how close some of these drivers are getting to that outside wall at the final corner, just trying to use every little morsel that they possibly can of this racetrack, as we do have a big prize on the shelf for today and tomorrow's event. Obviously a drive in an F4 car, and many people looking to do that, but at the moment the times are very close. 108.5, 108.5, 108.7, and these cars only separated at the moment by 1.6 seconds from first to third at the moment, so we definitely have a race on our hands for this heat.
Yeah, we do, and that is what we'd like to see. And at the moment, the blue car there has managed just to escape just a little bit, which is allowing him to claw back onto our race leader in the white car. We're going to get it now up on screen in just a moment's time, so bear with us until we can get that working. But all I can tell you right now, Zach, is that we're in for an exciting race, and it's all about where you can make a move work around the circuit, because there aren't too many spots, but there are some spots where you can really set up a move, like this final corner, get a good exit. Got every chance to turn 1.
Absolutely, and the 2 car there running very wide and almost going into the wall, and it looks like the number 3 car has a little bit of wing damage on that right-hand side of the car. Just slightly tipped up is the right-hand side wing of that car, so maybe he did have a little bit of contact with the wall, and he is starting to slow up just a little bit. The one car starting to gain ever so slightly, but will we see Scott Solowski make a move on Cameron Ball, because they're both in the position right now to advance to the next round, and but Matthew Woodward is not falling away from these guys. If Scott doesn't start making a move, he might come under attack from Matt in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely could, but the times at the moment are insanely close. The best laps for all drivers are within 400ths of a second. 400ths at a live event. This is massive stuff. All 3 cars within 1 second. Matthew Woodward closing onto the back of Scott Solowski, who is trying to hold on to that all-important spot at the moment. But Matthew Woodward, I was speaking to him earlier today, and he's actually racing with a broken foot. It's not that he races with, breaks with, I should say, but it is going to be extremely off-putting for him. As you can see, they're just thinking about a move into turn number 1, and have no chance of making anything happen just yet. But we're on board and walking behind as the car of Scott Solowski misses the apex and can't do anything with it. And at the moment, Matthew Woodward absolutely flying. 107.8 is 0.7 of a second quicker than anyone else has done.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott Solowski looks like he's starting to struggle now just getting on the brakes a little bit earlier than Matthew Woodward. Matthew, despite having that broken foot, seems to be very confident in his feet movements at the moment. Very smooth on the traction and very late on the brakes as he tries to go up the inside in the right hand, and not a very place to make a move there. But really putting Scott under the pressure now to make a bit of a move on, because Matthew looks like he wants to be the top seed for this race and make himself to the front of the pack. Just running ever so slightly wide, but again, fantastic under brakes as they come through the final corner, and very smooth on the throttle application. He's got a good run, doesn't look like it's quite close enough to do anything right now, but if he can keep up that pressure, he may be able to make something work. And despite them battling, as it stands, Scott Slowski and Matthew Woodard still catching up to Cameron Gall, who all these cars are just within 1 second of each other, which is absolutely incredible. And as they went round the last time by 108.86, 108.77 and 108.86. How about that? All those cars within a couple of hundredths of each other, or a couple of tenths of each other up.
Yeah, that is incredible racing at the moment, but the pressure is on Scott Slowski. He's got the pressure to go for this race win, or defend that all-important transfer spot from Matthew Woodward, who continues to apply the pressure. And, you know, there's no virtual mirror on this. This is as realistic as you can get. So for Scott Slowski, he's got to look at his mirrors, he's got to look left, he's got to look right, he's got to look at his top mirror as well to find any opportunity to make sure that he covers off what Matthew Woodward would throw at him, including contacts. They touch into the final braking zone. Now the runs and start-finish line on board from the chopper. And this is where Woodward really has to get into the slipstream, get right underneath the rear wing of Scott Slowski as they head into turn one, which is an opportunity. And we're going to see if he is brave enough to throw it up the inside. And at the moment, he can't do anything with it. Cameron Gall is loving this. There's no pressure on him at the moment for this race winning. Just has to drive clean, has to drive smart, has to drive 2 rounds. And at the moment, that will get him into the next round. Because Scott Slowski, the same cannot be said. He has to defend. Matthew Woodward is applying so much pressure at the moment. You can see Slowski's cracking a little bit. Slowski is a hard driver to really crack because he drives prototype. He's used to the pressure of most class racing as well. So he has to really fight, get his elbows out a little bit sideways as well. And that could be the opportunity for Woodward, who looks to the inside for just a moment's time. Both into the grass on the exit, maximising the track limits.
Oh, he's going round the outside. That's an incredible move.
Slide through the X's over the elevation as well, and just about holds on. Scott Slowski is doing everything he can. Woodward fires it around the outside. His day is done. Cameron Gall, Scott Slowski, your top two, and Matthew Woodward, you've got to applaud. What a drive.
Absolutely. Yeah, round of applause for Matthew. That was a valiant effort there to try and make his way past Scott, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. Trying to run as wide as he could through that final corner and get himself into that second qualifying position. But unfortunately not to be. Cameron Gall takes out heat number 6 here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. Very well done to him. And Scott Slowski takes home P number 2, which is very good. Matthew Woodward, that's probably the most valiant effort that we have seen today to try and get himself back into a qualifying position. And I have to say, for a man with a broken foot, he was doing an extremely good job there and definitely staying on the pace. Unfortunately for him, his fastest lap, a 107.8, is not going to be enough to get him through into the wild card position. But it's a shame because I feel like with a clean lap without having to battle with Slowski there, I reckon he could have easily done better than that, possibly made himself into the wildcard position. But that's the risk you have to run with these races. Do you try and fight for the position, or do you try and make yourself, in that position to get the fastest lap?
Well, sometimes that's the risk you've got to play. But one of the risks you have when you are racing is how aggressive you decide to defend. One driver that really had to work that balance today was Scott Slowski. And, mate, that was an incredible defensive drive. There was so much pressure on you in those final few laps. To hold on to that transfer spot, how was it from the cockpit?
Far harder than I thought it would be. It was definitely some interesting defensive lines I had to run, which weren't ideal, obviously. But, fair play. It was a close race. It wasn't too much touching, I don't think. It was really difficult with the VR. With the mirrors and stuff like that, I couldn't quite see where he was, so I was kind of guessing a little bit. And I didn't have any spotter in my ear either, which was a bit difficult too at times. But no, I think it was about as clean as we could, and I hope it was a good show for everyone.
Yeah, well, absolutely it was. We're screaming. You probably heard it from your seat as well. You did hear, okay, that's great. But it was a terrifying race, and you do drive in the Porsche a little bit. You've done the Porsche Super Cup a few times on V8SONLINE, but a different rig, motion rig as well, and VR, which I'm not sure you use at home as well, so a lot of challenges for you to adapt to.
Yeah, for sure. We've been talking with some of the boys about adapting to the rigs that we're running today. Like myself, I run a single monitor that the wheel is attached to my desk, so this is another level. It's taking a little while to acclimatise, but no, it's great fun. I'm trying to work out how many banks I've got to rob to try and get one of these in my place. But no, it's good fun, a good learning curve, and continue on to the next round.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And I know there's a few people at ASM that will probably help you rob a bank.
Yeah. Hope you guys are watching, and go well tonight in the V8 Scops 1000. I'll cheering you on from the sidelines.
Fantastic. And there's another big event that we do have here at V8SONLINE as well, Zach. And the Bathurst 1000 is a big race as well, and for those that perhaps are just watching from the Shannons Nationals streams that aren't aware of what we do, how big is the Scops 1000?
In terms of sim racing in Australia, I mean, it doesn't really get much bigger. There's no pool of talent greater for a specialized series. I mean, we have so many fantastic drivers in the V8 Scops Bathurst 1000, and we even have some real-life racing drivers who are real V8 supercar drivers who are going to be joining us this year as well, which is very exciting to see, and we eagerly await to find out how they all do. And you'll be able to see that they're going to be doing a top, I believe, is it 40 or 50 shootout. Everyone's going to just get one lap for a top 50 shootout for their start in tomorrow's 1,000-kilometre race at Bathurst, which of course is the famous 161 laps. So once we are done here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown this evening, please do remember to tune in for that. And we also do want to give a bit of a shout out to Pamela Watson, who is the grandmother of Daniel Benefield. Pamela, thank you so much for tuning in. She unfortunately lost her voice yelling while her grandson Daniel was in heat number 3 and managing to take out that one. So your lost voice is not in vain, Pamela. He did a very good job there and took home the victory. So we hope your voice is mended soon. But thanks again very much for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everyone for tuning in as well. But we are going to go on a little bit of a break whilst we get all the behind-the-scenes work done. And we reseed for what should be another group of some incredibly close heats. And like we actually just saw, it's just going to ramp up more and more and more, and the stakes are going to do just that as well. It's going to get more intense, the pressure's going to rise. Catch it all here on V8SONLINE.
Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerrick at the line.
is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Finish here of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerrick at the line.
Down. We're here, of course, at Sydney Motorsport Park, live on the set, and for what should be another cracking few heats. Of course, we have already had a lot of the heats go through, 5 of them in fact, and they've been full of drama, Zach.
Yeah, we've had a lot of drama this afternoon, and we've seen a lot of people really pushing themselves, not only for this first place beautiful trophy that we have sitting in front of us now for the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, but also what comes alongside this trophy, which is a drive in an F4 car, of course, for the winner of the event today and tomorrow. So we are just getting everyone in the cars for the quarterfinals. We have 4 heats coming up for you, and the first 2 cars from each heat previously have progressed into the next round. So drivers just starting to get in the cars as we speak. We're just sorting out a few of the finer details on all of the sims, and we'll be firing up and getting that done for you shortly. So in the round, in the next heat, in the first quarterfinal, we have Josh Anderson, we have Richard Hampstead, and we have David Haynes, all in the sim and ready to go for this first quarterfinal.
Yeah, and this is a lot of pressure on the drivers now. They've all made it through the first heat, so they've got the experience. They know how to make it into the top 2, but they've got to replicate it now. They've got to do it again. They've got to make sure they get themselves in that spot. And because this is, of course, the quarterfinals, the competition ramps up. The drivers get faster. The competition gets so much closer as well. So we should see another great fight like we had in heat number 5, where we had Goodwood really putting on some pressure in the final few corners.
Yeah, absolutely. That final heat number 6, was really a fantastic show for us to watch here. seeing the intensity on the drivers' faces. As you guys might not have been able to make out from the camera that we had, but we saw Matthew Woodward down the end using all of his capability to try and get that final spot in the quarterfinals. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. But at the moment, Matt Woodward does have the fastest lap for the wildcard entry. And what we have to remember is that the guys who are eliminated in these quarterfinals, they are still eligible for that wildcard entry as well. So Matthew Woodward not out of the woods just yet. He's going to have to hope that whoever places last in these last four quarterfinals isn't going to be able to put up a lap to best his. But we are just getting all of the drivers in the sim now. The headsets are on, and the drivers are looking around the cabin and preparing themselves for this next race.
They absolutely are, and they've just loaded onto the grid now for what should be a spectacular first quarter final. So we're getting ready for the lights to come up, and indeed they're on now. No lights yet, but now they're going to turn red, and very soon they're going to go off as well. We've got a jump start from David Haynes, so already disaster for him, and the lights go green now. That is not what David Haynes needed, as he now makes his way into turn number one, but unfortunately it's not going to be the lead. The lead is taken at the moment by the blue car, which is driven by another driver, so we're trying to work out what's going on at the moment, but it's Hampstead in the red car just behind us. Big lock-up into the first corner as well, as David Haynes throws it on the inside, can't do anything with it though. So it's Josh Anderson that is leading the field. Hampstead under big pressure though, as we go into turn number 3. Switch back from David Haynes, contact made as well, bumping on the exit, damage to Hampstead's car, damage to Haynes as well. All kinds of things are going on at the moment, but what we have to work out now is how bad is the steering for Richard Hampstead, and can he still make it into this final? Of course, David Haynes will have a black flag, but Hampstead's car looks near on and driving.
Yeah, he's got big damage to that car, so that's very unfortunate. He's going to come back, and that could be the race over. But I have a feeling this is actually going to be very interesting, though, because David Haynes may or may not have a black flag from that jump start. He may have to come into the pits, and
Josh Anderson's off, and he's launched into the wall as well. So a big accident, and that's actually David Haynes, who's had an absolute nightmare. He is furious with himself, and he will unfortunately be walking out of the Sydney race, the Virtual Racing Showdown. He has walked out. He is gutted with himself, which is a very dramatic exit, it has to be said. So we said there was issues there. David Haynes will no longer be competing, so Richard Hampstead will be able to get himself into the final of the showdown, but a bit of drama always goes a long way, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely, and the number 2 car, very, very lucky in that regard, because he has big damage, and we do have just a bit of an issue with the colours on the screen. So it was David Haynes who was in the white car who managed to find himself in the accident wall at turn number 12, and I would say, just having a look at the intensity of the drive from Richard Hampstead, that he is the one that has the steering damage at the moment. So these guys are going to probably just be able to plot around for the next couple of laps. And as far as I'm aware, the top 2 from this race do go into the finals tomorrow. So these guys will be joining us back at Sydney Motorsport Park for the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, and very unfortunate there for David Haynes. Maybe just that pressure and then the prize of the offer just coming to him a little bit. Richard Hampstead and Josh Anderson now just making their way around the track a few more times, and they should be guaranteed spots in the final tomorrow.
Well, another thing you have to consider as well is that before this event, before the break, of course, all the drivers were in the mindset. They were all incredibly focused on what they had to do. They had to get the goods. They had to have, get into the top 2 and, really perform when the lights went out. Then we had that 40-minute break, so everything calms down, the pressure eases off, and then out of nowhere, bang, it's back on, and you've got to be able to get yourself back into that mindset, get yourself to that point where you're ready to compete again. And, David Haynes, he's a very lovable guy. He loves a bit of a laugh, always in the forums, being extremely active. Perhaps in the break a bit too much of a joker and get his game face on quite enough, and just a small little mindset slip, which I'm sure we've done it at some point, Zach. We've almost let the clutch out too early and it's gone wrong.
I've literally done that more times than I dare to admit to, and it's unfortunate, but
that's one of the things that you have to deal with when you're doing this, and especially if you're going to be jumping into one of those things I mentioned you need to do. You know, I had my first contract experience in Ireland just a few days ago in AAU, and I got to say, once you get into the car, that's really tricky, and you need to be able to stress that and get yourself full to be able to put on a good show and put in a good performance for yourself. So, you know, David Haynes, unfortunate for him, but he's, as far as I'm aware, he's relatively new to the sim racing scene as far as I'm concerned. I haven't been aware of him before, so we'll see much more of him, and he also usually joins us on the Wednesday nights as well, so we couldn't see him back there. But unfortunately, at this big race, not going to be for him, and Josh Anderson still pushing like hell, 106.3. That is easily the fastest racing lap, I believe, that we have seen in competition today. And he's really putting on a performance. You can see all the people in the background definitely having an eye on Josh at the moment and just seeing where they can pick up those tenths of a second to try and beat him if he does what he's going to be in the finals as it stands. So they know what their competition is and they're studying it right now.
And that's what they have to do, and of course, let's not forget the finals are tomorrow as well, so they even get to go home, or for those that live in Sydney, or for those that don't, they just get to go back, think about what they've learned, think about how they can apply that, and put that forward to the next race. We're on board Richard Hempstead, and it is a modern miracle he's lapping within 10 seconds of Josh Waters. That car looks absolutely dreadful down the straight, really 45 degrees of block, and when you have to drive a car like this, Zach, you're in this situation where you can get through, you know that all you have to do is finish the race. How bad the car is, it's a tough mindset to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and one of the things as well that's going to be exacerbated by the motions here, you can see even just going through these slow speed corners, Richard Anderson, the motion simulator for him moving around quite significantly. He has just fallen out of shot there. We'll see if we can readjust that for you during the next break. He's on the furthest simulator on the camera at the moment, but you know that the motion also throws you around and does affect how you're able to control the steering wheel. You get thrown left a bit, you know, you try and react as appropriately as possible, and it's one of those things that these guys are not used to. So Richard doing a good job to keep that car out of the barrier for the remainder of the race, as we have Josh Anderson on screen right now coming through the blind chicane and into the final corner, very nicely parking the car on the apex of the corner there, and not using all of the road on the exit, but getting a very nice one nonetheless. He comes across the line this time round at 106.858, so about half a second off his fastest lap time at the moment. But we are running pretty high track temperatures here today, so definitely not out of the realms of the possibility that there is a bit of tyre wear involved in those lap times. But putting on a very strong performance at the moment is Josh Anderson. Richard Hempstead just limping his way back around the track and trying to bring that car home. And it's a little unfortunate for Richard Hempstead in the sense that, I mean, he might be able to go back home. I think he's local to the track here, so he may be able to go home and do some practice tonight and get a little more accustomed to the car. But as far as it goes for the running in the simulator that we have here today, it's going to be not as much practice for Richard Hempstead as I'm sure he would have liked coming into the finals.
No, absolutely not. This really would have been a good opportunity for him just to get some laps under his belt and to learn the track, just like Josh Anderson has been doing almost long. And well, he rounds the final corner on the last lap, and that generally means you're the race winner. So Josh Anderson would indeed cross the finish line to take a victory in heat number 7. So a great effort there from Josh to make that happen. And well, Hempstead still has one more lap, but on the bright side, he's got a transfer spot. He's going through to the next round as well. And with a prize like, you know, an Australian Formula 4 driver on the line, just finishing can be oh so critical sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh Anderson, obviously, we've mentioned a couple of times throughout the broadcast, pulling double duties here this weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park. Not only is he competing in the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, he is also competing in the Aussie Racing Cars Series, which Bo and I were actually down pretty much on the alternate pit lane
here at Sydney Motorsport Park, and the Aussie racing cars actually come into the building that we are in to have their scrutineering done. So it has been very cool to see those cars come in and being able to get a good close look at those. But Josh Anderson doing double duties, and you know, there is a big difference between one of those Aussie racing cars and an F4 car, and I have no doubt that even though he races for real, Josh Anderson is just as hungry and just as eager as any of these sim racers to get into one of those F4 cars.
Oh, absolutely, and that'd be a great opportunity for his career. We have the results up on screen, and of course, Josh Anderson walks away with the race win ahead of Richard Hampstead and David Haynes, who unfortunately makes a tough exit from this event. A shame to see, but of course, no doubt he will be back for another event in the not-too-distant future. But like you say, the difference between an Aussie racing car and the Porsche are so different. So for Josh to be so quick in both really is a testament to himself and how good of a driver he is. So that's a lot of confidence now building for Josh as he works his way towards the finals. Still got a few more rounds to go, including the semi-finals, which will be held tomorrow. But right now, things are looking pretty good for Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the #1 qualifier in the sim online, and putting in a very spectacular performance around Bathurst, which is, you know, one of the most challenging tracks to drive, especially in one of these Porsche Cup cars. And he's been backing that up with the fastest lap that we have seen today, a 106.3. And just for reference, the fastest wildcard lap at the moment is a 107.8. So absolutely astounding pace from Josh Anderson there. And you can see a few concerned faces in the garage today after that performance.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing we haven't touched on too much is there was a technical difficulty when it came to heat number 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring a member from CAMS along, our technical race director as well, just to give us a bit of an idea of what was happening with that rig and how the processes were going to go beyond this, of course. So we'll get an interview here, and he can just help us explain the difficulties, because we believe there was an issue with the VR, and that caused just a few issues when it came to getting accurate race results.
Yeah, that's right. So there was the first 2 races there where either the leader or the person in second encountered the technical issues. So with the stewards, the Motum staff here, and ourselves, we discussed that it was a technical fault of the VR system. So we were planning to rerun those races. Since that time, we've found that the 2 drivers, our guests, so Carl Reinler and Aaron Love, were both unavailable, given their other commitments for this afternoon. So they've chosen to withdraw.
Okay, well, that's definitely a shame to see, but of course, there's obviously a lot we can learn from this, and I'm sure this will be put into the regulations for future rounds as well. So that's something to look forward to. But we'll try and skip away from the negatives as much, because we've learned from this. Dylan Shepard and Andrew Carr will be moving forward into the next few rounds. As an event as a whole, what is CAMS looking for in terms of this event, and what are you trying to learn from it as well?
Yeah, so given the pilot nature of this program, we're trying to basically learn as much as possible. So when these sort of things happen, obviously it's unfortunate, but it's a great learning exercise. It's great to see the sport growing in terms of esports. To us, it's a grassroots version participation, so we want to support it to the best of our ability.
And how have the members within the CAMS community been receiving this event, and have you been hearing a lot of buzz around the pit lane regarding this event as well?
Yeah, so we're getting the most amount of feedback basically through our online channels. So there's actually quite a bit of an excitement to it. In some ways, it's great adding credibility to the esports industry. Obviously, it's growing in all forms of gaming and in the sports environment. So it's great to be able to support it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Matt, I believe. Yes. Thank you very much. Our head steward here for the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. So we do have our next heat of drivers who are just stepping into the cars. We have Andrew Carr, we have Daniel Benefield, and we have Cameron Gall, who have all put on fairly good performances. Andrew, as we were just saying, obviously had a technical failure in his earlier race, but luckily for Andrew, due to the fact that some of the other drivers have real-life commitments here, including driver stewarding and racing in the F4 series today, he is lucky enough to be able to progress into the quarterfinals, and so he will be coming up in this next round. But there are 3 very, very fast drivers here who have all put in great performances today, and hope that Daniel's grandmother can retain her voice for the rest of the day. We hope he doesn't get into many too close quarters here so she doesn't lose it too much. But for our sake, we are hoping for that because there's been some great racing today. If we can have more like Heat 6 from earlier this afternoon, we will all be very lucky.
Yep, absolutely. But here we are getting ready for race number 8 here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown live on the set at Sydney Motorsport Park. A fantastic event, a great backdrop to have as well with the cars buzzing around. But we're about to get some much more exciting racing happening here on the virtual stage in just a few moments' time. The cars are on the grid. Well, 2 of them are. We're about to make it 3. And then we're going to count one more number to 4 red lights. The revs will rise and we'll get set for what should be another cracking field as Andrew Cole will line up a pole position with Daniel Benefield, or will it stay that way? It's turn number 1. Great start from Andrew Cole. Cameron Ball immediately putting pressure on Benefield into turn number 1, which if you make a move strict is a place where you can make it happen. No separation to make a move. Yeah, but then the Benefield getting quite race as well. So it's all tied up on top of it as well. Ball gets very oversteery on the exit of turn number 2. In fact, has a bit of rally cross himself. The fight becomes Daniel Benefield and Andrew Cole out front, and this is going to be an interesting race to see because Benefield is in the mindset that he's going to go through to the quarterfinals. He's got to fight Andrew Cole. He's got to switch it back up after finding that 2 moves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it wasn't until just recently Andrew Cole was almost about to walk away from the circuit when they grabbed him and said, "Hold on, mate, put your shirt back on, get your shoes. You've got another go." So he's got to get himself back in the zone. And so far, he has done really nice launch off the line there. And some of these guys also not accustomed so much to the standing starts. A lot of these guys, GT racers or even prototype racers, who of course normally do the rolling starts. So Benefield having a little bit of trouble getting the car off the line there, but managing to keep it all together. And I think Cameron Gorse has had a little bit of a touch with the wall there, and it looks like he's got a little bit of damage to the right-hand side of that Porsche 991 Carrera Cup car, and just locking the brakes, as is Daniel Benefield, and Andrew Cole is running a wider exit line through there, and Daniel Benefield has actually closed up on Andrew Cole through that first section of corners. And Daniel's been looking very strong throughout this series. As we said, he's been sitting in this garage more than anybody else, picking up on all those little mistakes that people have been making, and so far he hasn't made any of them himself.
No, he hasn't. And he's a smart driver. He knows that he doesn't have to win this race to go through, but he does know that he has to keep that top 2 spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if Benefield would just sit behind Andrew for a little bit, just make sure he gets into the rhythm, and maybe if the shot comes in the dying laps, he'll have a shot and go for that all-important race win, which I believe will get him into a higher seeded field as well. So the Benefield really does need to sort of decide how he wants to approach this, as Andrew Cole does not mind kicking the back of the car out at all through the final corner, dancing with the limit. Not afraid to throw this race away, but the only thing he's trying to throw away at the moment is Daniel Benefield's slipstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously a lot of these guys used to the virtual mirrors that we get in iRacing, which is of course a nice big square or rectangular mirrors. Andrew Cole runs very wide and is now maybe going to have to put on a bit of a defensive line as they come down into turn number 3. But the mirror setup with this VR setup is very different. You actually have to look left and right and up to your center mirror if you want to have any indication of where your competitors are. And from having done it earlier, I can tell you it is a lot more difficult to gauge how much further behind your competitors are. So Andrew Cole just weaving across the track and trying to shake Daniel Benefield out of that rhythm and out of that slipstream, but looks like these guys can keep it pretty cool, calm and collected. Cameron Gall still driving very well, but possibly just carrying a little bit of damage, which is just setting him back at the moment. He's about 3 seconds off these guys as the 2 lead cars are within 0.4 of a second of each other.
And this is the thing that Cameron can't afford to give up on. He's in third. It's not looking amazing from the transfer, but if he could just keep skiing along and a gap builds between Benefield and Cole to the point where Benefield decides to start attacking Cole, if that actually happens, then those two make contact and Cameron has every chance of being back into this fight. But right now, Benefield does look content to sit behind as Andrew Cole sets the fastest lap of the race to a 6.6. So we said that Josh Anderson was very, very quick, but Andrew Cole's giving him a run for his money.
Yeah, and so is Daniel Benefield. Daniel Benefield's done a 106.8. So, yeah, we were talking about the speed of Josh Anderson before. Well, those guys were standing right behind Josh throughout that last race, and they've obviously
keyed in on a few things that he was doing and are applying it right now. So after a little bit of a scrappy start for Andrew Carl, he has the hammer down and he is in the lead of quarter-final number 2, and now just starting to gap Daniel Benefield just a little bit. Daniel has a nice 3.4 second cushion back to Cameron Goal behind. So maybe just trying to keep it smooth. We did see a couple of drivers spinning it on their own earlier this afternoon. And so he'll be wanting to make sure that he doesn't have to make that mistake himself. But doing a good job now, keeping in that slipstream of Andrew Carl and keeping within a second and keeping that nice buffer to the car behind.
He is, and that's what he has to do. Just build a margin and don't make mistakes. We have seen a few mistakes from Andrew in the past. It hasn't been the best race for the best series so far for him. And of course, he did the very first Virtual Sim Racing Showdown as well. He eliminated quite early in that as well. So when it comes to these events, Andrew doesn't have the most amazing history. Of course, when it comes to the real world, when it comes to the sim at home, and all the practice can enter, he's one of the best in Australia, without a doubt. But for Andrew, there's a bit of pressure on his shoulders to really perform at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw last time in the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, he definitely exited that a lot quicker. Well, he still made it quite far. I think he did make it into the quarterfinals, but he didn't go all the way to the finals as a lot of people would have expected him to do. So right now, he's doing everything that he can to prove that he does have what it takes and can adapt to this situation and bring home the cake. We saw him have a little bit of a lock-up on the left-hand front as he came into the final corner. Didn't manage to bring up any smoke from those tyres, so still keeping the temps pretty cool. And still, you can see Benefield there really still running out that wide line. He's still lapping very quickly. These guys are still lapping just within the 106s, 107.0 for Andrew Carl, 106.9 for Daniel Benefield, and a 107.8 for Cameron Gull. So Cameron's still, in fact, he's got a 107.1. So Cameron is still in contention for the wildcard position. And that fast lap that he did earlier on that could make all the difference for him at the end of this quarterfinal session.
Yeah, it absolutely could. For every reason, just keep on taking the laps down and get yourself in that position where it might be a possibility to get yourself much closer to the finals. Benefield comes out right to the gravel and just allows that gap to open from 0.8 of a second, just a little bit more. So for Benefield, not the lap he would have wanted, but even though to get through to the next round, all he has to do is finish in the top 2. If these two find themselves in the finals together, they've got to race one another. And Benefield, he can't afford to play second fiddle to Carl. So he has to learn a little bit here and make sure he knows where Carl's weaknesses are. So even if it comes against these two in the finals, there's still an opportunity for it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that could be partially why he's maybe hanging back a little bit, because we can see from the timing, they are running very closely within each other. 106.8 for Carl, 107.0 for Benefield there, and also a 107.0 for Andrew Gull. So he's actually just done a very fast lap there as well. Nicely done from him. Unfortunately, a little bit far away, but you're right. Daniel Benefield might just be sitting back, just observing what Andrew Carl does, so that when it comes to the real money time, he can do everything that he can to try and get past his opponent. But we are just running through the final few corners of race number 8, quarterfinal number 2. Lap number 7 is coming up as complete for Andrew Carl, who will take out quarterfinal 2 at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. He's guaranteed himself a spot in tomorrow's final, as has Daniel Benefield. And for Cameron Goal, a very respectable drive there. He's got a very fast lap, which still has him in the position for the wild card, as he just has a bit of a moment on the final corner there. But he's done enough with a good fast lap there, and a wild card entry still not out of contention for him. So he'll be hoping that no one else can best that lap of a 107.1 for him this afternoon, and he'll pick up that wild card entry. But well done to Andrew Carl and Daniel Benefield, who have progressed into the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they needed to do. They needed to get themselves in that position, and they've done just that. So great result for them, and a bit of an exchange of shaking hands there between Benefield and Andrew Carl. So just talk through that race, just see how it felt from their perspective. Of course, it was a pretty crazy opening start to the lap with them two battling a little bit. But in the end, Benefield just decided to take second and get himself through the next round, which is exactly what he had to do. So awesome work there from him. But we go through to our next heat as they all get ready for what should be race number 9. And of quarterfinal number 3. But before we do that, we might just try and get a bit of a word with Andrew Cole, who took out that race win and would walk away with the fastest lap from that race as well with a 106.5. So really good pace from Andrew, and showing what we really thought he would have when it came to the pre-qualifying. So
we're just giving them the heads up to come over and give us a bit of a howdy do. Obviously, Bo and I, you might not guess it from how much we're not prioritising Andrew here, but we are teammates with Andrew, so we do know him fairly well. So Andrew, don't be afraid to come in close, mate. That was a good race from you. Got it off the line fairly cleanly and just kind of controlled the pace of the race there. You did a fast lap of a 106.5, which was very respectable. How did you feel that went for you?
Yeah, I was a lot more comfortable in that race than the first one. I just, from the start, I had a good start. I changed my procedure on how I did it, so it worked out pretty well. And then in the first couple of laps, I made a few mistakes. I let Daniel get a little bit close, but then I sort of got into a rhythm, and then just towards the end, just brought it home, really.
And we noticed you kind of weaving down the front straight after those few laps to try and break the slipstream. Given that you're in the virtual reality and you don't have the you don't have the virtual mirror up the top, is it a little more difficult to kind of gauge how close your competitors are to you when they're following you down the straights?
Yeah, when you're behind or when you're leading the pack, it's really difficult to see. Like you said, the virtual mirror, you can't really see apart from the side mirrors. But even then, it's very difficult. So, like when you're racing someone side by side, it's better than single screens. But when you're leading, it's very difficult.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on your win, Andrew, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the finals tomorrow. But we will move on to our next round of drivers as they are just getting into the sims now. We have Daniel Shield, we have Carl Rapper, and we also have Dylan Shepherd, who is another one of our competitors who had some technical issues earlier in the day, but luckily for him, I think it was Josh Love, was it? Or Andrew Love, pardon me. Or Aaron Love, even. I'll go for 3
There's a lot
tries
of
on that
love
one.
around.
There are, yes, exactly. Aaron Love has F4 duties. He might even think that's what we're hearing go past us now. So he was unfortunately not able to come back and do a rerun. So Dylan Shepherd has progressed into the quarterfinals, and he'll be looking to do what Andrew Carl did. We saw Dylan in his race obviously have a very commanding performance for the first half of that, and so he'll hope for his sake that he's able to do the same thing. But Daniel Shields has been putting in some really, really good efforts this afternoon. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, he's very new to iRacing and has never driven around Oran Park and is more accustomed to Formula cars than he is these Porsche Cup cars, which are a bit heavier. So he's been adapting very well. And Carl Rapper has been doing also a very good job today, getting a little bit tangled up with Josh Anderson, who has been the fastest man of the day so far. But these guys are on the grid now, and I'll let them get the revs up as they build up. The lights are going to come down, and car number 3 is going to take us away from pole, and that's Dylan Shepherd, who gets a fantastic start. Carl Rapper, little slow away from the line. Daniel Shields trying to go around the outside. We've seen a couple of moves in turn 1 today, but Daniel thinks better of it. He's obviously not super comfortable in these cars. I just want to build up a bit of momentum before he tries anything too drastic. He does still have 7 laps to make a move work, but Dylan Shepherd, Carl Rapper, and Daniel Shields have all gotten off to a nice clean start here.
And that's what they needed to do, get it single file and get yourself into a rhythm. So Dylan Shepherd and Carl Rapper really in the best opportunity at the moment. But Daniel Shields, a very good driver, really impressed us in the first round of heats, and at the moment right underneath the rhythm of Carl Rapper as well. At any second, that little margin that's between them could grow, and Shields could really find himself in second place very quickly. And just as we say, Carl Rapper has a bit of a moment, then exiting and then into a fast elevating section of the circuit. And Rapper not looking as comfortable as he did in the first race, and really in the front car just a little bit. He gets right out to the wall on the exit of the final corner. And now the long run down the front straight and into turn number 1. And this is a good opportunity for Shields just to get on the slipstream and make a little bit more ground on Rapper as they now plunge their way into turns 1 and 2, which has an unloaded tyre at the point of a turn in. So you can see that it's pushing a little wide, barely locking the tyre as well. So pretty good brake modulation from Rapper, but how does he do into turn number 3? The answer is a lot better than Shields, who has a little wiggle under brakes. And very lucky to hold on to as he picks up a bit of the grass as well. And beginning to look a little bit more racy, it has to be said, and just closing out bit by bit. And if any opportunity presents itself at this point, if Rappo goes a little bit wide again, the commentator's curse, and immediately Shields down the inside and gets the position away as they final their way now into the undulating section of the circuit. And Rappo now all of a sudden has to make a move happen, but it's not going to be into there. That is not where you need to be making a move. And now into the final few corners of the circuit, you can make a move happen into the final corner. Shields has a huge moment over the crest, and Rappo's going to have one over himself as they all battle, getting every millimeter out of the circuit. And Zach, the one was cut yesterday, but they're doing it again today.
Yeah, I don't think they have many more goes before they just start ripping up just entire shovel loads of dirt through there. But Daniel Shields getting very crossed up and very nicely held onto there. He's doing a very good job now that he's moved up into that position. Just locks a little bit of an inside wheel there, but manages to carry some nice exit speed. Carl Rappo, though, he really doesn't want to give this up. As we've said many times today, there is a big prize on the line, and if you finish last in this race, that prize is pretty much as good as gone, unless he can put in some pretty skunking laps. We haven't had a lap put in from those guys that's actually registered yet, but given the pace that we're seeing from Dylan Shepherd at the moment, comparable to those two drivers, doesn't look like Carl will be able to put in a lap that isn't fast as our previous driver, Cameron Gold, who's done a 107.1, but he does still have 4 laps to make this back. Dylan Shepherd obviously had a technical issue in the earlier race, and that unsettled him a bit. So, and this is a very technical track. We've seen guys run into that outside wall that we've just been through the final corner, and just a little bit of damage there can make a big difference to the speed of the car.
Absolutely. That's one of the places you can really set up a move if you're close enough, but no such chance this time around as Rappo. That's probably a good 2-3 tenths gain there on Daniel Shields into turn 1. A bit of a wiggle for close on the exit, and that gap does indeed come down to 4 tenths of a second. Extends to 5 though under braking into turn number 3, and Shields pushing a little bit wide, but Rappo's going to outdo him again on the outside. They're both just trying to explore the track on this a bit too much, and as we hit the halfway point in this race, 3.5 laps to go, Shields is not in a comfortable spot. Dylan Shepherd is, and he's showing some stunning pace, 6-7 last time around, which is right up there with the likes of Anderson and Carl as well. So those 3 are looking incredibly dominant at the moment, but there's a lot of wild cards that can potentially get themselves into the mix as well. Carl Rappo now getting the gap to about 6 tenths of a second, so just ebbing and flowing throughout the lap. It's changing here, changing there, and at the moment just not able to get the gap to where he needs, but 3 laps left on the clock. There's still every chance for this position number 2 to change hands.
And Dylan Shepherd has pumped in his fastest lap of the race, not the last time around, but the previous, a 106.765, and I was saying that those guys might not be able to put in a lap to best Cameron Gold, but Shields just did a 107.2, and Carl Rappo also, he did a 107.3, and he's just nearly lost the rear of the car there, and now there is a big gap from him to Shields, so he's only got 2 laps to do it. I think I know what I'd be doing in this situation if I was Carl Rappo, but he's got to figure that out for himself. Maybe he just wants to back off, pull those tyres off for a lap and go for it, because he only really needs 2 tenths of a second to lock himself in this wild card position here.
Yeah, he does, and he just had a little moment there through the little mini chicane, through the elevation. The rise and fall of Oran Park is really, really stunning, and I wish you could see it in real life. Unfortunately, that isn't a possibility anymore, apart from some housing estates. Now, I've got to say, race cars is just a little bit more exciting to me than a few houses. But Dylan Shepherd out front doing a commanding job, and a little bit of an error maybe last time around because he lost a bit of time to the driver behind, only a 10.5, so it's not the end of the world for Dylan Shepherd. But Daniel Shields is really beginning to match Shepherd at the moment, who, let's not forget, Shields doesn't play iRacing too much, and Shepherd is quite a good driver when it comes to the Porsche as well, so for Shields, this is a very impressive drive.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a bit of a chat to Shields in that break there, and talking about his experiences in online racing, and he's mainly stuck to Formula cars and other content other than iRacing, but I think we might be able to sway him over to the so-called, well, not so dark side in my opinion, but he's looking forward to picking up iRacing a little bit more, and judging from the performance that we have seen so far, especially in the Australian sim racing community as well as the global sim racing community, I can't say that that is a bad thing at all, because he has been doing a fantastic job. And I mean, I could even be a little bit mistaken, but I believe that what we'll see is they come over the timing line now, a 107.3 for Dylan Shepherd and a 107.4. So he was just starting to pull in Dylan Shepherd a little bit there, maybe a little bit of a mistake towards the end of the lap there for Dylan Shields, but he only has one lap to go to guarantee himself a spot in the semi-finals tomorrow. And Carl Rapper is unfortunately not on the pace. He has one final opportunity to get in a good lap and try and solidify himself a place in the finals with a wildcard entry. So he will have to really push the limits of what that Super Cup car is capable of. You can see him just pushing the limits of the curb on the inside after the bridge there. Very smooth through this section here, which is very important. You can quite easily lose 0.4 of a second just by running wide at one of those corners. We turn now to Dylan Shepherd as he comes through the blind chicane up into the final corner. Parks it nicely on the apex, runs it out wide, doesn't use too much of the exit, and solidifies his place in the finals tomorrow. Congratulations to Dylan Shepherd. What a bounce back after having those technical issues earlier. Daniel Shields, a really impressive performance, finishing only 3.5 seconds behind Dylan Shepherd, given that him and Carl were having a bit of a go at each other as well. But unfortunately for Carl, it doesn't look like he has put in a lap which would put him in that wild card position.
No, unfortunately not. Only besting a 7.9. He was really throwing it around on that final lap, but able to deliver an 8.9. So, unfortunately for Carl Rapper, his journey in the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown will come to an end in race number 9, heat number 3 as well. So, bit of a shame there for Carl, but really good performance throughout, especially the first heat. Did a great job to make it through. And the competition's been really hard because let's not forget, Zach, that these drivers in here are some of the best of the best, because we had over 140 drivers put in times in the online qualifiers.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some of Australia's best sim racers put in times, and it was unfortunate that some of the guys who qualified weren't able to make it down to the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown. But as we've said, we're hoping to have many more events. I think we're penciling a few in. So to the guys that did make the qualification and weren't able to make it down to the track, there are going to be other opportunities, and hopefully there are going to be many more opportunities over the coming years. But for the time being, it is all over for Carl Rapper, and Daniel Shields and Dylan Shepherd will progress into the finals for tomorrow at a chance of winning this beautiful trophy here, and also a seat in an F4 car, which, I mean, this is a good-looking trophy, but we've been looking at those F4 cars going around the last couple of days. We were actually standing above them as they were going down the pit lanes yesterday, and they are beautiful pieces of machinery.
They're incredible. We're obviously, like you said, up on the balcony, just looking into the cockpit of the cars, but just seeing all the finer little details of the car that you don't often get as a spectator. So really using that opportunity to our advantage. And the cars are phenomenal, and they sound great, flying through into turn number 1 flat.
Yeah, I think they were flat, were they?
Absolutely incredible stuff from the drivers. And if I could quit being a commentator here and have a drive and try and get a drive myself, I would. But here we are, and I'm not sure I could compete with this lineup, Zach, because we have some incredibly quick drivers, including Chris Owen. We've got Mitch McLeod and Scott Zaslowski as well. So we have some iRacing veterans and some of the really impressive talent we've got here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you and I have put in our fair share of laps over the last couple of days, and I think we've been pretty close to some of these guys, but I'm not sure that we would be putting in times that are quite there to take the cake. But guys who have been doing so include the gentlemen who are just coming into the Sims now, as you mentioned, Scott Zaslowski, Mitch McLeod, and Chris Owen, who is fairly, he doesn't have a massive, not as big of an iRacing background as the two other guys who are sitting next to him, but from what we've been seeing from him at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, been very impressive, put in one of the fastest times in the qualifier on Friday, and has been doing very well so far.
Yeah, he has. He's been extremely quick, and we were saying earlier yesterday that you could really see the technique of what drivers are doing, and which drivers look quick, which drivers aren't. And immediately he struck as someone who was incredibly quick, knew what he was doing, and jumped to iRacing like a fish out of water as well. So a great job there from him, and he's one to watch as well, as we are now into the session, and the clock begins to tick down just a little bit, and very soon the drivers will be gridding up, as we're just getting some final little things sorted. But here you can see we're back at sunny Oran Park. It's been pretty incredible to say that the weather is still as nice as it was earlier today. Normally in Sydney, you've got pretty much all 4 seasons in a single 2-hour time span, but you might be able to hear in the background we're getting some revs rising, but we're not gridding up just yet. We're waiting for all 3 cars for what should be one of the more closely contested heats of the day, as we're revving, we're lining up, and any second now the clutches will drop it. Indeed they do. It's Scott Sosnowski is caught sleeping at the helms in the red car. He's going straight to pin number 3, unfortunately. Mitch McLeod, the world's best sim racer, doing exactly what he said he would, and leading from the front. He needs to hold on to it though. Almost quite good in a locked break here, a locked break there, and the entire field choo-choo trains around the outside of turn number 1. Meters from the apex, but turn number 3 should be easy to hit.
Yeah, Chris Owen actually probably got the best start that we've seen all day. Absolutely rocketed out of P3 and is now right on the back of Mitchell McLeod as they come into turn number 4. They're very impressive launch from him, and these Super Cup cars are very difficult to get off the line. Kind of have to have a really, really good technique on slipping that clutch, and Chris has done an excellent job to propel himself into that position. But he's going to have to maintain those lap times, and hopefully Scott Sosnowski is not going to be able to catch him as he just runs a little wide. But Scott's getting a little bit taily as they come up through there. Mitchell McLeod, though, already with a 7/10 of a second lead as they come through the final corner at the end of lap 1. Actually running quite deep there, does Mitchell McLeod. That's going to hurt him a little bit, but he does have some nice momentum coming out of the final corner. We're now on board with Scott Sosnowski, who lost that position off the starting line, just bogged it down and wasn't able to do anything with it. Chris Owen on the brakes hard, the rear of the car just dancing around as he tries to pull it up. Mitch McLeod blocks it inside. Scott Sosnowski getting very close to the back of the car of Chris Owen as they come through turn number 1. These guys are holding line astern at the moment, but the pace from these 3 guys is very even, and it could all break loose at just one line mistake here.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the line, all cars are separated in 9/10 of a second. Of course, that's slightly affected by how their launch was, so we'll get a much more respective idea of what their pace is next time around. So they run on their way now through this next section of corners, which you have to go right out to the grass. You can see there, like from the shopper cam, Chris Owen taking a little bit more cautious than most when it comes to the track limits. We'll see how they go through the chicane, and Mitch McLeod used all of it, and all 3 of them using every millimetre of the tarmac that you can. Mitch McLeod out in front at the moment makes this battle for second place, which you have to keep an eye on, as Sosnowski keeps himself nice and close to the outside wall, now trying to tuck into the slipstream with Chris Owen down this back straight and funneling into the very tricky turn number 1 and 2. Might get some lost brakes here and there as they try and make the absolute most. You can see there, all 3 drivers are doing a fantastic job. And that's another display of what kind of talent we have there. That is one of the quickest corners in Australian motorsport.
Oh, absolutely. I know it's definitely the most intimidating corner around this track. Whenever I come here, I'm always thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through turn 1? Pretty much every time, and especially in these cup cars, the amount of rear bias that they have to run. And having the cars dance as Chris Owen gets very sideways coming out on the exit of the bridge there. That's going to open up a little bit of a gap there for Scott Sosnowski to park himself in, and he has to back out of it. But that gives Sosnowski a bit of a psychological advantage now. He's been running very well. Chris Owen's been very, very quick, but just little minor mistakes like that are all it takes to end your race. And interesting what you said about Chris being a little more cautious with the track limits, though. We have seen a few people just picking up a curb here and there and causing the car to get very unsettled, in some cases even spinning. So he's doing a good job of making sure that doesn't happen so far. But as we can see now, Sosnowski very deep on the brakes. How good is a shot? How good of a shot is that, guys? Front of Sosnowski, rear of Owen, very close, closing in very well in that turn 1 braking zone there.
Yeah, exactly, and this is where it's on absolute ragged edge for these guys, getting everything out of his Porsche that they can at the moment. McLeod last time around is absolutely a stunning job. 106.8 is his fastest lap, and his second fastest lap is another 6.8. So Mitch McLeod really punching above his weight at the moment. Well, as the world's best sim racer, he's punching, with the likes of Anderson, with the likes of Cole, with the likes of everyone else as well. So you cannot predict who's going to walk away with the trophy at the end of this event, but at the moment, The only trophy that you want is a qualification spot into the next round. That is exactly what Scott Slosky does not have. And what he wants, that is right in front of him. Chris Owen is just carried on the stick, dangling in front of him. It's just Slosky doing everything he can to grab it.
Yeah, and these guys are incredibly consistent. Actually, all cars a little bit slower that time. In fact, the fastest car that time around was Scott Slosky. Yes, well, actually, it was Chris Owen just by 100th of a second. 107.016 versus a 107.7026. But interestingly, that puts Scott Slosky in the wild card position now. He's done a lap, which is very, very quick. Might have just been faster than Cameron calls, I believe. I think Cameron did get a 0 in there, but I think it was a high 0. So very low 0 there for Scott Slosky, puts him in the wild card position. So even if he doesn't come second or first in this race, he still has that fastest lap holding him up for the time being.
Yeah, absolutely. But the entire pack is so close, so none of these drivers can afford a mistake. Before in the early heat from Mitchell McLeod, Nick Rallycross way further than Andrew Bowles, right out to the time limit as well. If he does that, he doesn't just lose the race lead, he loses a qualification spot. There is pressure on all these drivers. In fact, closest of the two right now is actually Chris Owen and Mitch McLeod. The gap comes down to just 4/10 of a second at the moment. And this is where things are going to get very interesting as they funnel their way down the front straight. And the cars now just 4/10 of a second apart, and Chris Owen getting closer on their brakes, but so is Slosky. All three cars, nose to tail, bumper to bumper. 2 laps to go, and a qualification spot on the line as well. A good run out of 1 from McLeod. Turn 3 is not as nice to a note. There's a bit of time back to Chris Owen. He picks up some grass, throws it in Scott Slosky's face. Nothing he can do. McLeod's in quite deep as well. So the gap comes down to 3/10 of a second at the front. 8/10 from first to third and last place. There's so much on the line right now, and these drivers are doing everything they can, putting it all on the line. If you're Scott Slosky now, you throw caution to win. You don't care about track limits. You don't care how close you are to the grass of the entries and the exits, how early you put on the track, how early you brake. You put it all on the line.
Yeah.
Guys, at the moment, and you can see bagging over the elevation and the chicane, and the race lead is now 3/10 of a second. It's getting closer and closer and closer, and we get the white flag in the end.
One more lap to go. Chris Owen is led by Mitchell McLeod, followed by Scott Slosky, just 4/10 of a second on either side for Chris Owen, very deep, all of them into the first corner. Scott Slosky almost taking out Chris Owen and Mitchell McLeod there.
Slosky, here he comes up the inside, looking at it, has to back out of it, he's half committed. Thinks about it, door is closed though. This is on at the moment. Mitchell McLeod might have an opportunity to run away, but running away is exactly what Chris Owen cannot do at the moment. Big oversteer out of turn 4. This goes over the bridge now in the high levels as well, and truly over the bridge as we get into the final section of corners. And for Slosky, he's got to get close here. Don't worry about making a move, get close. Set yourself up for the final corner and put it all on the line. 7/10 from McLeod to Owen. That is done. But Owen and McLeod is not done. This is still going on over the rise of Owen Park. The elevation change. This is lost. He's got to do something desperate. He's got to hope for a mistake now because Mitch McLeod rounds the final quarter. Owen is going to hold up on the edge of his seat as Slosky threw everything at it. And the only thing he got in return was concrete wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all of those guys pushed each other to the absolute limit. Well done to all 3 drivers. So, not necessarily knocked out is Scott Slosky. He still has the wildcard position, we believe, as it stands. His best lap of 107.026. Best Cameron Gall's 107.0. I believe it was a 9.1. So we'll have to see how we go. But all 3 cars finishing just thereabouts within a second of each other, and an absolutely incredible performance from all 3 drivers there. We will get that sim cam fixed up for you in the next few races, and we can see there Chris Owen, he's got sweat pouring down his face, down his neck, down his shoulders. That was intense, and everyone in the room can feel it. An absolutely fantastic race from all 3 of those drivers there, and we'll see if we can get Mitchell McLeod over for a bit of an interview, the world's best sim racer, not too unaccustomed to being on the telly every now and then, so we will get him over here.
I'm a little bit nervous just by his presence. The world's best sim racer, ladies and gentlemen. This is a privilege.
Absolutely. So welcome, Mitchell McLeod, mate. That was a very intense race there.
just over a second, 1.022 seconds over the line between the top 3 cars. Were you feeling the pressure in the last few laps of that race there? Look, you can't tell that this guy is shaking. That was full on.
Yeah, no, that was intense. That was really good. I didn't expect to get such a good start at the start of the race, and looked like I was pulling away a little bit. And then it started going to my head, and I thought, all I've got to do is keep doing what I'm doing, and I didn't do it. So then they started catching me back up again, and yeah, it kept me on my toes. So it was bloody awesome.
Absolutely. And do you feel like you've you kind of been evolving a little more in the sim? I noticed looking at the timesheets, you're putting in some pretty hot laps there. We have your best lap of 106.808, which is very close. Josh Anderson, I think, has the fastest lap of about a 6.3 or a 6.4. So getting very close to there. Do you feel like you're getting more accustomed to the sim as the day progresses?
I feel like I've got used to it, but I'm not anywhere near the limit, I don't feel. Like I had a couple of big moments then coming through the last little dog leg. But yeah, there's a few areas I need to improve on, but yeah, it's feeling all right.
Excellent. Well, mate, that was a fantastic race, and everyone here was definitely enjoying watching it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the finals.
Yes, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much to Mitch McLeod for joining us here. We're just about to get our final round of drivers in for the final quarterfinal. Pardon me. It's just been flying by here at the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown today. That actually was the last quarterfinal, which I actually find difficult to believe because it's just been so intense. But ladies and gentlemen, you have to join us tomorrow morning for the final because someone will be taking home this wonderful trophy, and someone, not tomorrow, but at another date, will be sliding themselves into a Formula 4 car when they take home this trophy. So we've seen some absolutely fantastic racing, Bo. Are we feeling pumped for tomorrow?
How can you not be pumped? It's going to be a fantastic event, of course. And we've got a special guest commentator coming down as well. If you don't know, I'm going to leave it as a bit of a surprise as well. But it's going to be a very interesting event. You can, of course, catch it all live on V8SONLINE, iRacing Esports Network, and Shannons Nationals as well. It's going to be an absolutely awesome one. And the competition is just hotting up and up and up. And the pressure is going to be all on the drivers tomorrow because that is where the big prize is decided, like you said. And this lucky trophy and a test drive in Australian Formula 4 car will be going to someone. But as for who it's going to be, I'll have to find out tomorrow. This is the 2018 Virtual Sim Racing Showdown live at Sydney Motorsport Park. I'm Bo Albert. Beside me is Zach Halen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.